Chapter 589. Overlapping Clones. This was a sign of extreme speed. Whoosh! A sword came flying. This was a very ordinary sword. This could only be called a fast sword. A very fast sword. However, Fang Yin felt a strong sense of danger. This sword also carried lightning, not in the sky, not in the outside world, but inside the sword, hiding and not showing it. Also on the verge of exploding. Bai Xiu's sword slashed straight at Fang Yan's head, wanting to split Fang Yan in half. His ghostly speed, coupled with this godlike sword strike, was indeed impossible to defend against and difficult to parry. Lightning sword, the gray-robed man on top of the mountainside. Lightning is not as good as hidden. The sword is not as good as the person. Lightning is heaven-defying. Heaven-defying will be struck by lightning. The most exquisite part is that it is hidden, yet on the verge of exploding. Once this sword is unleashed, no matter how ugly it is, who will wield the sword? The martial fanatic was also shocked, saying, "This kid is indeed impressive. His talent is rare in this world." Looking at Bai Yan, he softly said, "These youngsters nowadays really cannot be measured with common sense. At such a young age, they have already established their own sex, whether it's Fang Yin or Bai Xiu. Their achievements in Taiji and the way of the sword are all worthy of being called grandmasters. Pity, pity. Two miracles are not miracles." The gray-robed man's voice carried a hint of a smile. Only one can appear, and only then can it be called a miracle. So one of them must die? One of them must die. Pity. The martial fanatic Ho Zhendong's eyes flickered, not knowing what he was thinking. "Don't interfere," the gray-robed man said. "If you interfere, I'll take back what I said before." Huh. What in the world can be hidden from you? The martial fanatic lamented. "Of course there is. What is it? For example, is Mo Qingdi dead or not?" This was a secret. No one knew if Mo Qingdi was alive or dead. However, ever since he entered the land of extreme frost, there was no news of him. Fang Yin understood Bai Xiu. Even though this guy liked to show off, he was not an idiot. He swung his sword so seriously, and his running movements were so flashy. That proved that he had great intentions behind this sword. Fang Yin did not want to touch the thunderclap sword. He knew that once he touched it, the thunderclap inside the sword would explode with his body as a conductor, turning him into charcoal. But he had no choice but to touch it, because this sword of Bai Xiu's was ever-changing. The sword moves myriad. No matter how he dodged, he would still have to face this sword head-on. The Tai Chi heart in his body spun to the extreme, and the black and white fish had already turned into a blurry illusion. Bai Xiu's body turned into a circle, embracing the two extremes of yin and yang. With a light tap of his feet, he flew straight up into the sky. Moon seizing ninth heaven. Bai Xiu followed suit, his long sword still enveloping Fang Yan's vitals. Fang Yan hugged the big ring with both hands and rushed toward Bai Xiu. The long sword in Bai Xiu's hand trembled incessantly, and the shocking thunder hidden within it began to roar restlessly. They were not willing to be restrained by Bai Xiu, so they impatiently drew their swords and attacked the opponents who dared to provoke them into minced meat. Whoosh! Fang Yin hugged the shocking thunder with both hands. The long sword was the moon that Fang Yin wanted to hold in his arms. "Courting death," Bai Xiu sneered. With a flick of his wrist, a shocking thunder suddenly pounced toward Fang Yan's chest, which was still closing in on Fang Yin. Rumble! The shocking thunder was like a long dragon, dragging its huge tail as it pounced toward Fang Yin, opening its bloody mouth to swallow Fang Yan's head and body. No one could have imagined that Bai Xiu's thunderclap sword actually hid such a huge and powerful lightning dragon. Go to hell. Fang Yin, embracing the moon's wrist, spread open, unexpectedly hugging the lightning dragon in his bosom. If you want to beat a snake, hit it where it hurts. If you want to catch a dragon, you have to catch its neck. The lightning dragon was made up of energy, and all energy moves had an eye of energy. The eye of energy was the lightning dragon's weakness. Fang Yin hugged the lightning dragon with both hands, letting it struggle and roar in his arms. It soared high into the sky with Fang Yin, its tail desperately whipping Fang Yan's body. Crackle, crackle. Fong Yan's hands gripped its neck as if he was grabbing the lifeline of an electric monster. He continuously poured his Taiji power into the lightning dragon's body, modifying the inside of its body. Lei Long felt pain as well as fear. It wanted to break free, wanted to self-destruct. How could Fong Yan let it self-destruct? Taiji focused on yin and yang. It used its purest and most natural power to restrain the lightning dragon, turning it into a pet and a monster that it could only control. Whoosh! The lightning dragon quieted down, as if it had been tamed by Fong Yan. It shone with a silver light in Fong Yan's hands, but it would not do anything extreme. Bai Xiu's eyes narrowed. He did not expect the lightning dragon he had exiled to be subdued by Fong Yan. His body flashed and appeared high in the sky. His longsword flashed with a red light as it slashed toward Fong Yan's head. The longsword was silent, but because the energy was too intense, it burned the air around it, causing the lightning dragon to let out a painful groan. Bai Xiu, give me justice. Bai Xiu hugged the lightning dragon and flew higher again. His body flew higher and higher until he was above Bai Xiu's head. He hugged the lightning dragon with both hands and smashed it toward Bai Xiu's head. Boom! The lightning dragon roared and pounced toward Bai Xiu again. Bai Xiu stretched out his sword to touch the dragon's eye. As soon as he touched the lightning dragon, he broke the lightning dragon's balance and caused it to explode. Bang! The lightning dragon exploded, and the remnants of its body enveloped Bai Xiu's body. Crackle! Bai Xiu's body was struck by lightning and emitted a sound like an electric shock. Bai Xiu's body kept trembling in the air. Then he lost control and rapidly descended. Fong Yan's body descended at the same time. After using Thousand Caddies Fall, his body approached Bai Xiu's body at an even faster speed. Fong Yan's feet flew out and fiercely stomped on Bai Xiu's chest. Bai Xiu, give me justice, bang. Give me back my father's life, bang. Bai Xiu deserves to die. Fong Yan stomped his feet over and over again, using all the strength he had in each stomp. He had never hated someone so much, and he had never wanted to kill someone so much. Pa! Bai Xiu's body smashed heavily into the ground, smashing the rocks into pieces. A deep pit appeared on the ground, and Bai Xiu's body was deeply embedded in the stone pit. Bai Xiu's body lay motionless in the pit, as if he was dead. Only the energy from the lightning dragon rubbed against his hair, emitting the sound of an electric shock from time to time. Bang! Fong Yan's body landed lightly on the ground. He saw Bai Xiu in the distance and walked step by step towards the place where he fell. Fong Yan looked at Bai Xiu, and Bai Xiu also opened his eyes and looked at Fong Yan. The previously handsome Bai Xiu was in a sorry state at this moment. His hair was a mess, and the white robe on his body was torn to shreds by the lightning dragon, making him look like a beggar's outfit. His eyes were bloodshot, a characteristic sign of his internal organs being congested with blood. Wounds appeared on his face one after another, and each wound was oozing blood, as if someone had slashed his face dozens of times. These weren't cuts from sharp objects, but from being unable to withstand Fong Yan's lightning dragon storm, causing all the blood vessels on his face to rupture. At this moment, Bai Xiu's face was ashen, and he no longer had his previous elegant demeanor. Bai Xiu. Fong Yan looked at Bai Xiu condescendingly. You win. Bai Xiu grinned. When his face twitched, the blood vessels on his face bled even more fiercely. The blood mixed together and turned into blood troughs. The blood troughs converged, forming a lake of blood. Bai Xiu's face was covered in blood, and his original appearance was no longer visible. That's the obvious truth, Fong Yan sneered. I really don't want you to die. I want to see more of your pitiful appearance. To be honest, I've never considered you an opponent before, Bai Xiu calmly said. The blood had already flowed into his eyes, but he still didn't care. I always felt that you weren't my opponent, and you shouldn't be my opponent. Although you've shown some talent, how? Is this level enough? Also, you're too impetuous. I've always felt that impetuous people don't amount to much. I just didn't expect the heart of Tai Chi to be so miraculous that even a sure kill like this couldn't kill you. Don't say anything for now, Fong Yan said. It looks like you're saying goodbye. Winner takes all. This is a farewell. What? Isn't killing me what you're looking forward to the most? That's not it either, Fang Yin said. His hands searched all over his body, but he couldn't find his phone. After thinking about it carefully, he either forgot to bring it, or he lost it during the fight. Fang Yin felt extremely regretful and said, I just wanted to take a picture of you before you die. If you die later, I'll take a few more looks at you, cough, cough, cough. Bai Xiu started coughing violently. As soon as he coughed, a large amount of blood spurted out from his mouth. Bai Xiu's internal organs were severely injured, and his organs were displaced. He was probably not far from death. Fang Yin, this is how annoying you are. You'll never lose in a fight of words. Bai Xiu coughed for a long time before stopping, panting heavily, then said, That's why I couldn't help but want to kill you countless times. To be honest, even if there's no benefit, even if it doesn't involve the phoenix, I still want to kill you. This is also what I wanted to say to you. Fang Yin smiled. And I'm preparing to do so? Fang Yin raised his foot and stepped on Bai Xiu's head, saying, Bai Xiu, I won't ask you anything. I'll just send you off. Go die. Chapter 590. There were 4 great joys in life. Rain after a long drought, meeting an old friend in a foreign land, wedding night, and taking revenge for one's father. Fang Yin was very excited and emotional at the moment. It had been 3 years. In these 3 years, he had been thinking about this matter all the time. He was guessing who his father's murderer was. He suspected one by one, and then denied them one by one. He was thinking about how to defeat his enemy. He wanted to use the cruelest method to knock him down and kill him. The only solution was to pay a tooth for a tooth, blood for blood, and a life for a life. Other than death, it was hard for him to think of another way to avenge his father. He did it. He finally knocked his father's murderer to the ground. His foot stepped on his face, on the face that used to be handsome and charming. Fang Yin only needed to exert a little bit of force, and he would be able to stomp his head into the cracks between the rocks. He would be able to fuse with Mount One sword, never to be separated. Coincidentally, this Mount One sword was the natural tomb he chose for himself. Move your foot. When Fang Yin was about to stomp down, a hard voice came over. That voice was not only domineering, but it also carried a hint of arrogance that could crush him at any time. It was as if Fang Yan's life was already in his hands. Fang Yin turned around and saw the man in black, who was like a hill, holding a black pistol and aiming it at his head. Oh, there was also another man in black who looked like the Shaoshan brothers, holding another pistol and aiming it at his chest. The two of them stood on the left and right sides of Fang Yin, forming an 8 encirclement. The muzzles of the 2 pistols were firmly locked on Fang Yan's body. In this moonless and starless night, they were still wearing black suits and shirts. If one's vision was not good, one would not be able to see where they were standing. These people had caught up long ago, but when Fang Yin and Bai Xiu were fighting, they chose to watch from the sidelines. Fang Yin liked these simple-minded opponents. Impossible, Fang Yin said. It wasn't easy for him to defeat Bai Xiu. It wasn't easy for him to step on Bai Xiu's face. It wasn't easy for him to avenge his father's humiliation. How could he give up on what he wanted to do just because of a stupid threat? If he wasn't holding a gun in his hand, Fang Yin would have rushed over and beaten him up. If he dies, you will die too, Shaoshan said aloud. The safety of the pride pistol in his hand had long been pulled off. He only needed to gently press the trigger, and Fang Yan's head would explode. No, not only the head would explode, but the body would also explode. If he didn't move his foot away from Bai Xiu's face, Bai Xiu's head might also be blown up because of him. This was the pride pistol that appeared after being modified by countless gun modification experts in the black market. Its explosive power was equivalent to a powerful genetic bomb. Nowadays, the assassins were using the most advanced and lethal weapons. They could not wait to make the entire building the target lived in collapse with one shot. Only a few nostalgic old fellows still use the most primitive gunpowder bullets. They said they liked the faint smell of smoke and fire. Of course, those who dared to be so pretentious were the top killers in the world of killers. Ordinary killers still used the safest way to solve the target and complete the mission. They didn't like Bai Xiu and were willing to see him fail and be beaten to the ground. However, They didn't want to bear the responsibility of killing Bai Xiu by mistake. If that was the case, that young master would not let them have a good time. I don't believe it, Fang Yin said. He would not accept being threatened, even if someone pointed a gun at his head. In his chest, Xiao Shannin glanced at his brother and said with a smile, "Sometimes I feel that you are frighteningly cunning, and sometimes I feel that you are as stupid as a pig. Don't you see what we are holding in our hands? We just need to press it gently. Your head is like an egg that has been smashed by a punch. The color of the egg yolk may not be very nice, and the smell is not very pleasant. I have smelled it, and then I've vomited the Kobe beef that I just ate in the afternoon. Brother Shu, don't talk nonsense with him. Let's blow his head off," Xiao Shannan's brother said impatiently. He didn't like Fang Yin, and even more so, he disliked Fang Yan's pretentious manner. "I have already pointed a gun at your head, and not only are you not afraid to beg for mercy, but you are also talking nonsense with us without fear. Do you think our pride pistol is fake? Do you think we, the gunmen, are blind?" Out of professional pride and personal pride, Xiao Shannan's brother really wanted to kill Fang Yin with one shot. As for what happened after that, they could do whatever they wanted. Didn't they just kill a piece of trash when they killed Fang Yin? For the sake of his brother's great contribution, the young master would probably not blame them. "You see, my brother is already impatient." Xiao Shannan, who was called Brother Shu but looked nothing like a mouse, laughed mockingly. "Although my patience is better than my brother's, it is not much better, so I will give you one last chance. Get your feet out of the way. Let me test you with a brain teaser." Fang Yin was a little helpless. He looked at Xiao Shannan and said, "If I move my foot away from his face, will you not shoot me?" Xiao Shannan's expression stiffened and said, "That depends on your attitude. You're lying." Fang Yin said, "If you don't want to shoot me, you don't have to keep asking me to move my foot away from Bai Xiu's face. The reason why you keep asking me to move my foot away from Bai Xiu's face is because you don't want to hurt your companions by accident when you shoot me. You can't afford such a responsibility. Is that right?" Xiao Shannan and his brother looked at each other, deeply impressed by Fang Yan's wisdom. This man's analysis was so reasonable that they could not refute it. When the weak could not refute, they liked to use their ultimate killer move, pestering. So Xiao Shannan's brother scolded and said, "I told you to move your foot away, so you obediently move your foot away, or else I will shoot you." Fang Yin looked at Xiao Shannan sadly and said, "Since you insist on shooting me, why should I listen to you and move my foot away from his face? Why should I do such a thing that will only bring disgrace upon myself? Just like what that idiot brother of yours said, if I don't move my foot away, he'll shoot me dead. If I move my foot away, he'll lay down his arms and surrender without doing anything." Is the name of your group called 438 Retarded Brothers? You dare to scold people? Xiao Shannan was furious. He wanted to remind Fang Yin again that he was still holding a gun in his hand. "I will also threaten people," Fang Yin said with a cold look. He looked at the Xiao Shannan brothers and said, "Tonight, I only want to leave Bai Xiu alone. If you are smart enough, get down the mountain and tell your master that I will soon find him to settle the score." Xiao Shannan laughed and said, "Do you really think we are idiots? We're pointing a gun at your head right now. As long as I pull the trigger, you will die. Why should we go down a mountain?" Even Xiu Mu, who was at the side, could not stand it anymore. He pointed at Fang Yin and scolded, "You bastard with the surname Fang, don't think that you can be so arrogant just because you defeated Bai Xiu. We old fellows are still alive. You better listen to him and kneel down to surrender. Otherwise, we won't be polite to you." Xiu Mu stood next to Phoenix. When he said that he would not be polite to Fang Yin, he deliberately turned around and glanced at Phoenix. The meaning of the threat was very obvious. If she didn't listen to him obediently, he would smash this traitorous little girl into mincemeat with a single punch. Because Phoenix had saved Fang Yan's life at the critical moment, everyone in this encirclement team did not have a good impression of her. Previously, with Bai Xiu protecting her, they would not do anything to her. Now that even Bai Xiu, who was protecting her, had been beaten to the ground, they did not mind giving her some punishment. Fang Yin raised his eyebrows. This was indeed a problem that he was more worried about. When he and Bai Xiu were fighting in the sky, These people had caught up and automatically formed a new encirclement. The two silent old men stood on high ground, one holding a copper basin and the other holding a black and white chess piece. They could attack Fong Yin again at any time. After this period of rest, Saber Lord Luo Jin's complexion looked much better. He stood opposite the silent old man. The two of them formed a situation where a close-range warrior and a long-range spellcaster worked together. Xiao Mu had a fiery temper, but his mind was also the most agile. He immediately flashed in front of Phoenix and grasped her life in his hands. Kongzhu stood in front of him on the left. The two brothers also formed a small offensive and defensive formation that advanced and retreated together. Not to mention the two idiots who were pointing guns at Fong Yan's head and chest. Although Fong Yan had defeated Bai Xiao, the situation was still very disadvantageous to him. Fong Yan looked at Kushan Nan and said, "Let me tell you my decision. If either of you dares to pull the trigger, I will cut off the arm that fired the shot at the same time as the bullet is fired." As Fong Yan spoke, he reached out and grabbed Bai Xiao's thunderclap sword that had fallen to the ground. Go to hell. Kashima's brother could not bear such an insult. He aimed at Fong Yan's chest and pulled the trigger. Bang! The powerful recoil of the world defying made a clang sound. A golden bullet shot out from the muzzle and headed for Fong Yan's chest. Whoosh! Fong Yan's body disappeared. When he reappeared, the bullet had already flown past where he had been standing. He once again maintained his original posture, the posture where one foot was stepping on Bai Xiao's head. He liked this posture very much and wished that someone could take a picture of him. Of course, it seemed that this wish could not be fulfilled. Fong Yan's speed was too fast. It was as if he had never left. You bastard, Kashima's brother laughed and said, "Didn't you say that as long as I shoot?" Green Cat, Kashima shouted anxiously. Green Cat looked down and saw that one of his arms had been detached from his body and was falling to the ground. Just as Fong Yin had threatened, the arm that had been cut off happened to be the one that had fired the gun. "I mean what I say," Fong Yin said coldly. "I've lived for more than 10 years, and I've never lied to anyone." Chapter 591. If either of you dare to pull the trigger, I will cut off the arm that fired the shot at the same time as the bullet is fired. In the blink of an eye, or rather, in the blink of an eye, Fong Yin had already rushed out and chopped off one of the shooter's arms. And it was the arm that fired the shot. If he said to hit the left side of your face, he would never hit the right side. If he said to cut off the hand that fired the gun, he would never cut off the hand that fired the airplane. It had to be said that Fong Yan's way of showing off was quite intimidating. Fong Yan's speed was too fast, so fast that it was hard for the eyes to follow his movements. Except for Bai Xiao, who was lying on the ground and being stepped on, it was hard for the others to keep up with his pace. This was the difference in strength, and this was the suppression of realms. Without Bai Xiao, the thorn in his side, Fong Yin felt a lot happier, and his life was a lot better. Bang! The bullet that the Green Cat shot out with the Proud World pistol hit the trunk of a big tree, and the bullet drilled a deep hole in the tree trunk. There was a short silence, and then a loud bang was heard. The trunk of the big tree broke in the middle and exploded. The living wood scattered everywhere. The whole tree was blown into the sky, and the broken branches and leaves rustled. Crack, crack! When they landed, they were still dismembered in the air, and the huge head was scattered into countless small branches. If it hit a human body, blood and flesh would fly, and it would be a mess. It had to be said that the Proud pistol was indeed powerful. It was similar to the attack power of a miniature rocket launcher, and it was more accurate than a rocket launcher. Pah! This was the sound of Green Cat's hand and the Proud pistol falling to the ground. Fong Yan's sword was very artistic. It cut off the shoulder bone and separated from the body. When it fell off, Green Cat didn't feel anything strange. He even wanted to pull the trigger and shoot a second bullet. However, even though his brain had issued the order, his arm couldn't carry it out. Green Cat didn't feel pain until his arm fell to the ground. Blood gushed out like a red fountain. Ah! The Green Cat opened its mouth and screamed. Only then did he feel the pain. It was a heart-wrenching pain. If it weren't for his strong willpower, he would have fainted on the spot. Green Cat, are you all right? Mouse's eyes stared at Fong Yin without blinking, and the proud world pistol in his hand was aimed at Fong Yan's head without moving. His expression was ferocious, and he looked at Fong Yin with murderous eyes. He and the Green Cat were both members of the Jiang family. They were guards specially trained by the Jiang family to protect the important members of the family. They only had code names and no names, but their lives were closely linked to the rise and fall of the Jiang family. Not only them, but also their children and grandchildren, they were all part of the general's family. The Jiang family had dug them out and nurtured them. The Jiang family gave them everything, and they only needed to offer their abilities and loyalty. It was precisely because of their status as members of the Jiang family that they disliked the people around Jiang Junling. If you've read Zhang Yan's biography, you'll understand that there are fights between masters, and there are also fights between servants. No one has an easy life. Mouse and the Green Cat were the bodyguard assigned by the Jiang family to Jiang Junling, so they could only be Jiang Junling's people for the rest of their lives. Emotionally, they were as close as brothers. Now that the Green Cat's arm was cut off, Mouse really wanted to shoot. When the bullets exploded and the Green Cat screamed, everyone's eyes were attracted to them. Mouse really wanted to shoot Fong Yan's head. He didn't dare to move, and he didn't dare to be careless. Fong Yan was indeed a man who could do what he said. He said that if anyone dared to shoot, he would cut off the shooter's arm, and he really did it. Just like he said, "I've lived for more than 10 years, and I've never lied to anyone." He really wasn't a person who liked to lie. But what if? What if after he shot, not only did he not kill Fong Yan, but he also got one of his arms cut off like the Green Cat? Mouse was in pain and confused. In a hunter school in Africa, they mainly learned marksmanship. They felt that modern warfare was mainly about money and technology, and a high-performance pistol was enough to conquer the world. Didn't they say the same thing? No matter how good your martial arts is, you're still afraid of a kitchen knife. No matter how sharp the kitchen knife is, you'll be killed by a gun. Which son of a bitch said this? Mouse thought angrily in his heart. He felt that he was cheated. Mouse felt wronged. He used to think that those people with knives and swords couldn't keep up with the times, but now he realized that he couldn't keep up with the speed of others. "Kill him! Quickly kill him!" the Green Cat screamed. Because the pain made him lose his mind, he wished that someone could cut off his head. Living was much harder than dying. As the Green Cat screamed, he picked up the Aoshi pistol from the ground again. He used his only left hand to grab the pistol, and once again raised it to shoot. Screech, another silhouette flashed by. The gun didn't fire, and the bullet didn't come out. However, the Green Cat's other arm also fell to the ground. "Kill!" The Green Cat didn't even get to finish his sentence before falling to the ground. Fong Yin stood still with the thunderclap sword in his hand. The tip of the sword was stained with blood, but Fong Yin's foot was still on Bai Xiu's face. Bai Xiu laughed and said, "These people are no match for you. Killing them is as easy as flipping your hand. However, I like to see you kill people. Only a serious man has a future. When you kill people, you're much more likable than when you're smiling. Fong Yin, kill me. I'm the person who killed your father. As long as I'm alive, you won't be able to forgive yourself. Don't you want to avenge your father? Don't be impatient." Fong Yin smiled and said, "Do you think I don't want to kill you? If Phoenix wasn't in their hands, I would have already crushed your head with my foot. It's still early. Don't you like to see me kill people? Then open your eyes wide and watch carefully. Watch how I take care of each of them. Tonight, I'll let you watch to your heart's content. You still don't have the courage." Bai Xiu sighed lightly. An opponent like this is truly disappointing. Fong Yan's foot began to exert force, deforming Bai Xiu's face. Yes, just like that. Because his face was deformed and his mouth was dislocated, Bai Xiu's voice had become indistinct. "Use a bit more force. Just a bit more force, and I'll be dead, bam." Xiu moved through a punch. A huge pit immediately appeared next to the boulder that the phoenix was lying on. Rubble flew everywhere, and it looked as if the phoenix, who was sleeping on the boulder, was going to be buried alive. "Fong Yin, brat, I'll say it one last time. Move your foot, otherwise I'll smash her into a meat patty." Xiu Mu cursed. He rushed over and dragged Phoenix up from the boulder. Phoenix's body was so weak that she couldn't stand up at all. Xiao Mu grabbed Phoenix's neck with one hand, using the strength of his arm to support his body. He stared at Fang Yin mockingly and said, "Just now, this little whore begged for mercy and blocked my sword for you. You must feel terrible, right? If she dies in front of you like this, you'll blame yourself for the rest of your life, right? But it doesn't matter. There are too many cruel and unscrupulous men in this world. One more won't make a difference." Fang Yin calmly looked at Xiao Mu and said, "You're using her to threaten me. What do you want me to do? Cripple my own martial arts? Or tie myself up, kneel in front of you, and let you chop off my head?" Xiao Mu was dumbfounded. He did whatever he wanted and hadn't thought of using Phoenix to threaten Fang Yin at all. He wasn't a qualified kidnapper, and he hadn't even thought of the conditions and lines for negotiation. "If I don't die, she won't die. If I die, she'll die with me. I'm sure you won't keep her alive. The more dangerous the situation, the more you must remain calm." This was a message that Imo Qingdi had passed on to him. He had defeated Bai Xiao, but the situation was still very disadvantageous to him. Bai Xiao was a good card in his hand, but Phoenix's life was in the hands of someone else. What kind of choice should he make? Because Phoenix had betrayed him, he could use Phoenix's life to exchange for Bai Xiao's words. In that case, he could avenge his father as he wished. However, Phoenix had betrayed him, and she had also saved him. It's hard to make a choice, isn't it? An old voice reached Fang Yin's ears. Fang Yin could clearly sense that the voice wasn't coming from his surroundings, but from a faraway place. However, he could hear it very clearly, as if an old man was speaking and sighing in his ears, using qi to condense the spirit and not disperse for a long time. The person speaking, his inner force cultivation should have reached the realm of transcendent, right? "Who are you?" Fang Yin shouted in a stern voice. "Who are you? Do you really want to see me?" The old voice once again sounded in Fang Yin's ears. Fang Yin had a bad feeling. He could feel the danger. It was a natural reaction to being coveted by a powerful and ferocious animal. The hairs on his body stood on end, and a fine layer of goosebumps appeared on the surface of his skin. His heart of Taiji spun again, automatically activating the first layer of protection. Fang Yin was a little regretful. Why did he ask, "Who are you?" Wouldn't it be better to pretend that he didn't hear what he said? "Are you afraid of me?" Before Fang Yin could answer, the old voice once again sounded in Fang Yin's ears. Chapter 592. Have you ever had this kind of experience? When your schedule is already full, there's still all kinds of beautiful women with long legs, fair skin, big breasts, and round buttocks calling you to ask you out for coffee. I know you haven't had this kind of experience. I'm just asking. But Fang Yin had this kind of trouble. He felt like he was being harassed by countless ugly women. He was stepping on Bai Xiao. He had just cut off one of Green Cat's arms, and the men he had to face next were Rat, Xiao Mu, Diablo, and Sword Monarch. He was speechless. His time was really tight. Now, there was an old man with an ugly voice who wanted to cut the line to see you. How would you feel? "I'm not afraid of you." Fang Yin was furious and said to the old man, "I just don't have time to see you." Fang Yin praised himself for being quick-witted. He felt that his answer was decent and perfect. Even when he rejected others, he revealed a sense of superiority. Not everyone could have such a flexible and ever-changing style of speech. Fang Yin didn't want to see the old man who could condense qi to communicate. If that person wasn't your grandfather, who would want to see an old man? At least, not at this time. Whoosh, or rather, there was no whoosh. It was so sudden, so abruptly, that a figure suddenly appeared in front of Fang Yin. The figure was covered in a gray robe. His face couldn't be seen, and his figure couldn't be seen clearly. He was like an illusory person, a ghostly shadow. It was as if one could pass through his body just by touching it with their hands. His body blurred for a few seconds before slowly becoming solid. Fang Yin still couldn't see his face clearly, but he knew that he was an old man. He could feel the old man's aura. "I don't think so," the gray-robed man said with a smile. "Isn't it just killing a few people? How long would it take?" In his eyes, Xiao Mu and Diablo were just a few ants. How long would it take to crush them? Whoosh! Another figure appeared in front of Fang Yin. "No, A naked man appeared in front of Fong Yin. Fong Yin recognized this naked man. Just as he was about to greet him and mock him, the naked man acted as if he didn't see him. He turned to look at the gray-robed man and said, "You said that you wouldn't make a move tonight." "That's what I said." The gray-robed man looked at the martial addict and nodded. "But now you want to make a move?" Ho Jindong, the martial maniac, accused. "You didn't keep your word. You broke your oath." "I only said that I won't do anything tonight. I didn't swear." The gray-robed man sly tried to explain himself. "Besides, even if I swear, what's the punishment for breaking the oath? 3 cups as punishment? Or do you want to eat meat?" "You can't do this. I said I won't make a move because I think that kid by Xiao will definitely win. But since Bai Xiao actually lost, I naturally have to make a move. You're a senior, a famous person, the martial fanatic said awkwardly. What's said is like spilled water. How can you take it back?" "Who said spilled water can't be taken back?" The gray-robed man coldly laughed. "Why don't you pour a basin of water out and see if I can get it back? If spilled water can be taken back, what's wrong with changing my mind? Having lived in my age and status, I can say whatever I want. I can do whatever I want. Who can stop me?" The gray-robed man looked up at the martial addict's body and scoffed. "You're one of the 7 fanatics of Huaxia, yet you run around with your butt bare. When did you ever care about your reputation?" During his battle with Fong Yin, the clothes on the martial addict's body were all burned away. That's why he's still naked right now. The martial addict hurriedly put his hand over his chest. After a bit of thought, he put his hand over his crotch. After a bit of thought, he put one hand over his chest, the other over his crotch. He was so ashamed that he wanted to die. Originally, Fong Yin harbored hatred towards martial arts fanatic. If it weren't for this old fellow's scheme to frame him, repeatedly provoking him, and his superb performance, how would he have been tricked to the summit of One Sword Peak by him, exhausted all his energy in a fierce battle, and almost stabbed to death by that shameless fellow, Bai Xiao? But now, seeing how he tried so hard to persuade the gray-robed man not to make a move, he felt a bit of goodwill towards him. This guy wasn't a good person, but he wasn't so bad that he had no bottom line. Furthermore, he had something he was willing to protect and hold on to. This was something he and Fong Yin had in common. Fong Yin originally planned to have a good fight with Ho Jindong, the martial arts maniac, after settling the matter of One Sword Peak. He would shoot him dead when he was not paying attention. Fong Yan's heart softened. Cutting off his arms, legs, and the middle part of his life should be enough. Leave a way out, and you'll drink later. Fong Yin couldn't bear to see the martial addict's embarrassment, so he stared at the gray-robed man with a sharp gaze, as if he wanted to see through the black cloak to see his current expression and face. Going back on his words, how did such a shameless guy get to where he is today? "Who are you?" Fong Yin asked again. "Brat, are you sure you want to know who I am?" The gray-robed man chuckled. "If you know who I am, you won't be able to leave One Sword Peak tonight." Fong Yin pointed his sword at Bai Xiao, who was still under his feet, and said, "That's what he said earlier, but now he's under my feet, and I'm holding a sword in my hand." The gray-robed man laughed. He laughed wantonly, and laughed to his heart's content. He really did find this to be funny. It's been so many years since someone dared to threaten me so openly. In this world, how many people are worthy of being my opponent? Do you think I'll end up like him? Of course you won't, Fong Yin smiled. You're worse off than him, brat. You want to die? The gray-robed man struck out with his palm. Fong Yin wanted to raise his hand to parry, but the palm had already reached his chest. Bam! Taking the strike head-on, Fong Yin spat out a mouthful of blood. His chi flow was disrupted, his blood was boiling. His internal organs were in turmoil, his chest felt like it was being crushed by a boulder, making it hard for him to move. The gray-robed man's cultivation was indeed high. His palm strike almost took Fong Yan's life. Fortunately, Fong Yin had the Taiji heart to protect his body, so before the black-robed man made his move, they had already begun to spin. When the black-robed man struck out with his palm, Fong Yin didn't even have time to counterattack, but the Taiji heart reacted, instantly sending a majestic aura to the place where the palm struck, protecting Fong Yan's vitals. Otherwise, the gray-robed man's palm strike would have shattered Fong Yan's chest. Fong Yan's body leaned back a little, but he quickly regained his standing posture. His right foot had been stepping on by Xiao's head. This was a small hobby of his. The gray-robed man looked at Fang Yin with a puzzled expression, asking, "That palm didn't kill you? I don't think this is something to be proud of." Fang Yin stared at the gray-robed man cautiously, worried that he would attack again without any warning. This old man's attack speed was too fast. Even I can't keep up with him. I wonder who in this world is his match. Fang Yin felt very sad. He couldn't remember offending such an expert. Why do they always have to make life difficult for me? Aside from my handsome appearance, I'm not that outstanding in any other aspect. Why do they all like Bai Xiao? When I struck out, I actually felt a rebounding force. The gray-robed man's voice was low. He looked at Fang Yin and said, "You are too young, my eyes. You are just a weak child. Just like those other children, a single palm strike would be enough to crush you to a pulp. But I have to admit, you are an expert, a genius, or in other words, a miracle that people often talk about. The Taiji art is indeed a mysterious and marvelous martial art, but unfortunately, it fell into your hands. Comprehending the light of Taiji in one night, mastering the Taiji twin fish, and endlessly growing qi in your body. To have such a cultivation at such a young age, no wonder the martial fanatic loves you and doesn't want to kill you." Fang Yin glanced at the martial fanatic, who was still covering his chest and crotch with both hands, and said, "Brad, if I were you, I would think of a way to escape. Run as far as I can. A gentleman's revenge is never too late. Do you understand?" Fang Yin smiled and nodded, saying, "But with the current situation, even if I wanted to escape, I wouldn't be able to, right?" The martial fanatic sighed, then looked at the gray-robed man and said, "How about, I owe you another favor, and you let this brat go?" The gray-robed man looked at Fang Yin and said, "Since the martial fanatic is begging for mercy again, I can give you another chance. Let go of the brat under your feet, and I'll let you go." Fang Yin wanted to refuse, but the gray-robed man waved his hand to stop him, saying, "Young man, don't be in such a hurry. Wait for this old man to finish. I'm not forcing you to agree to my request. I'm actually hoping that you will refuse. You can kill Bai Xiao, then I'll kill you and that girl called Phoenix. Your choice. Is there a third choice?" Fang Yin asked. The gray-robed man slightly raised his head, looking at Fang Yin like he was an idiot. "What does he think I am? A vegetable vendor who can bargain with me?" "Don't be angry. I was just asking casually." Fang Yin smiled and said, "What if you think that it's a good idea for me to stomp Bai Xiao to death? Then let me and Phoenix go." "I don't like talkative young men." The gray-robed man looked at Fang Yin and said, "What's your choice?" The martial fanatic desperately signaled to Fang Yin, telling him to quickly let go of Bai Xiao and leave with Phoenix. Bai Xiao was already a cripple. Couldn't he just find a chance to kill him? Fang Yin nodded at the martial fanatic, then looked at the gray-robed man and said, "I refuse." Chapter 593. "I refuse," Fang Yin said. "That's your final decision?" The man in gray looked up at Fang Yin with a hint of a smile in his eyes. But the smile was very cold as an ice sculpture in a land of extreme coldness. Just a glance was enough to make people shiver. "Fang Yin, you idiot. Do you know what you're doing?" The martial addict was so angry that he stomped his feet and waved his arms, forgetting to cover the fat on his chest. "I finally gave you a chance to live. Why are you wasting it like this?" "I refuse, just like how I refused to run away when the Qingyan military department came to challenge me, even though I knew I couldn't win," Fang Yin said. "I refuse, just like how I refused to compromise when I knew I was up against a powerful enemy that could take my life at any time. I refuse the cowardice and fear in my heart. Because after this, I'm worried that there will be a next time. I refuse the pity and charity of the enemy. I want to live, but I can also die. I refuse Feng Hui's grandson to surrender to the enemy. Because my grandfather said that the men of the Feng family must never surrender. His grandfather's grandfather never surrendered. His grandfather's father never surrendered. His grandfather never surrendered. His grandfather's son never surrendered, and his grandfather's grandson can't surrender either. I refuse Feng Yixing's son to spare the life of the killer. The hatred of my father's death is irreconcilable. Nothing can stop my desire for revenge. Fang Yin stared at the man in gray with a knife-like gaze and said with a clear voice, I refuse. I refuse to spare Bai Xiu. This is my final decision. The martial addict's mouth was slightly open, his eyes wide as he stared at the proud and righteous Fang Yin. So word can be said like this? Acting cool can be done like this? Knowledgeable people are truly scary. The martial addict sighed in his mind. If that's the case, the man in gray stared at Fang Yin like needles and said, Why haven't you made your move yet? Bai Xiu is already lying under your feet. You only need to raise your foot to stomp on his head and kill him neatly. Why haven't you done anything yet? Because I've always had a fluke in my heart. Fang Yin answered truthfully. Just now, I wanted to kill Bai Xiu, but I also wanted to save myself and the Phoenix's lives. As long as there was a chance, I wanted to get the best of both worlds. This is human nature. But from the moment you appeared, I had already made up my mind. If my chances of escaping are slim, then I'll choose to kill Bai Xiu. Young man, do you know that there are many things where reality and ideals are very different? The gray-robed man chuckled. You want him dead, and I want him to live. Tell me, is he dead or alive? Fang Yin did not answer the gray-robed man's question. It was a difficult question to answer. If he wanted to kill Bai Xiu, he had to kill him. But this gray-robed man wanted Bai Xiu to live. He would save Bai Xiu, and the best way to save Bai Xiu was to kill him. Fang Yin knew that because of his refusal, this gray-robed man already had the intention to kill him. Fang Yin stared at the gray-robed man without blinking. Fang Yin was preparing to exert force on his foot. As long as he exerted force and sank the qi in his dantian, he could easily kill Bai Xiu with the internal force in his body, even without lifting his foot. But when he did this, he would give the gray-robed man an opportunity. In the eyes of an expert, your every move, every glance, every breath could be an opportunity to attack. Fang Yin did not know who the gray-robed man was, but he knew very well that this was the most powerful enemy he had ever met. The smile on the gray-robed man's face froze, only staring sharply at Fang Yin in front of him. The martial fanatic felt that a great battle was about to break out, so he opened his mouth to say something. The gray-robed man coldly said, Everything should be done in moderation, if you still remember who gave you a second life. The martial fanatic sighed, then turned around to leave the battlefield. He understood that his efforts were unnecessary. Whether it was Fang Yin or the gray-robed man, they were both extremely proud and stubborn people. If they had their own thoughts, they wouldn't be easily swayed by others. Young man, you are very talented, the fastest growing person I've ever seen. The gray-robed man looked at Fang Yin and said, You are also very courageous. Why don't you try again? Fang Yin did not say anything, only trying his best to keep his breathing even. He stood like a statue, a fortress without any flaws in defense. The gray-robed man shook his head and said, You're wrong. Tai Chi emphasizes defense, not offense, but both your grandfather and Mo Qingdi, they both emphasize offense, not defense. In the same vein, offense is your greatest advantage. Unfortunately, you gave up on that. As the gray-robed man spoke, his body had already disappeared. Bam! His palm struck Fang Yan's chest, sending Fang Yan's body flying. One step too late again. As Fang Yan saw the gray-robed man's body disappear, Fang Yan also made a counterattack. He struck out with his palm, wanting to take the gray-robed man's palm head-on. The best result would be to also strike him, but it was too slow. As soon as his palm struck out, his body had already been sent flying. Crack! Fang Yan's body smashed heavily onto a branch that was as thick as a bull's mouth, breaking it into two. Fang Yan's body leaned against the lower half of the tree trunk. He breathed heavily to calm his roiling qi and blood, as well as his severely displaced internal organs. Blood once again flowed from the corner of his mouth, but it was much better than the first time he was hit. This time, he was prepared in advance. But he was still unable to block the gray-robed man's attack. Fang Yin waited until his body was a little more comfortable. When the Taiji heart in his body started to spin again, He once again walked towards the gray-robed man. The gray-robed man stood beside Bai Xiu, who was lying at his feet. The difference was that he did not use his foot to step on Bai Xiu's head. Fang Yin strode towards the gray-robed man. He wanted to snatch Bai Xiu back. He did not care who Bai Xiu was. He only remembered that he was the enemy who killed his father. The gray-robed man's eyes turned cold. Fang Yan's unyielding and unappreciative attitude made him feel despised. Without any movement, his body disappeared again. He struck out with his palm again, aiming for Fang Yan's chest. Fang Yan stretched out his hand to block. He caught it. He felt a round force coming from the front. Bang! Fang Yan's chest was hit again, and his body flew backward again. His palm hit nothing but air. Well, he felt that his palm was about to touch the gray-robed man's palm. The gray-robed man suddenly changed his move. The round force he came into contact with was only the shadow of the palm. The real move had deceived his eyes and hit his chest. Whoosh, whoosh. Fang Yan's body slid on the ground, smashing countless branches, grass, and protruding rocks along the way. Clang. Fang Yan's body slammed into a large rock, and his body came to a halt with difficulty. Fang Yan lay there motionlessly. After sensing his body's condition, he got up from the ground again. He took the initiative to walk towards the gray-robed man, taking the initiative to attack. Fang Yan felt that the gray-robed man's words were very reasonable. Although Taiji emphasized defense and not offense, both his grandfather and his senior brother, Imo Qingdi, emphasized offense and not defense. Since they were of the same origin, offense was the greatest advantage of Fang Clan's Taiji. Fang Yan wanted to take the initiative to attack. He didn't know what the best outcome would be, but he knew what the worst outcome would be. Fang Yan, give up. Martial fanatic tried to stop him. Even if Imo Qingdi was at his peak, he wouldn't necessarily be able to win against him. You're still too young. Did Imo Qingdi retreat? Fang Yan asked. No. Martial fanatic Marquis Zhen Dong gloomily replied. Was this the reason why Imo Qingdi was one of the 3 divine dragons in his prime? Even though he was only one of Hua Xia's 7 fanatics? They knew what the best choice was, but they were willing to try the most difficult path. When facing a powerful opponent, they would never give up. Was this the secret to their success? I won't either. Fang Yan let the blood flow from the corner of his mouth as he dove down, taking the initiative to rush towards the phantom-like gray-robed man. Whoosh! Fang Yan used Drunken Crane riding the wind, the most mysterious and most difficult movement technique to grasp. In a strange state, he rushed to the back of the gray-robed man and slammed his palm into the middle of his back. Tai Chi palm, controlling the Tai Chi, giving rise to endless variations. Too slow, the gray-robed man suddenly turned around and spoke with a mocking and sympathetic tone. Then he struck with his palm, striking first despite being the second to strike. Bam! Fang Yan's chest was hit again, and his body flew into the air again. He spat out a mouthful of blood, creating a small rain of blood in the air. Clang, clang. Fang Yan's body landed heavily on the ground, creating a deep pit in the hard ground. From this, it could be seen just how powerful the gray-robed man's palm strike was. Even when Fang Yan used his own body to block most of the force, there was still a large amount of the remaining force that destroyed the ground. This time, the wound was so deep that Fang Yan only felt dizzy, stars flashing in his eyes. It was because of the dazzling stars in his eyes that Fang Yan knew for sure that he was still alive. Cough, cough, cough. Fang Yan coughed violently. Blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. The blood stained his mouth, his neck, and his ears, all the way into his ear hole. Fang Yan used his elbows and knees to push himself up from the ground. After the consecutive battles tonight, his clothes were tattered, his hair was messy, and his face was stained with blood. Because of the pain, he could only bend his body slightly. But he still walked step by step toward the gray-robed man. My father's death cannot be in vain. Fang Yan wiped the blood and tears from the corner of his eyes, so that his eyes could see a little more clearly. With a cold and stubborn voice, he said, I won't either. Chapter 594. Fang Yan was not a fool. Just as Bai Xiu had said, in many people's eyes, Fang Yan was too smart, and he was not on the same path as them. This was also the reason why they were determined to get rid of him. However, at this moment, Fang Yin was doing something extremely stupid. Countless seniors had learned this lesson through blood and tears. If you can win, then fight. If you can't win, then run. If you can't run, then pretend to be dead. Fang Yin had always thought of this as his principle of doing things. However, when he was facing an absolute expert like the gray-robed man, he tossed the words of a senior to the back of his mind. In a moment of hot-headedness, he wanted to rush up and fight with his life on the line. He fell down again and got up again and again. The power of the gray-robed man's palm was very strong. Every time it hit Fang Yan's chest, it was like a huge hammer hitting him. If it weren't for the fact that Fang Yan's heart of Tai Chi always went to defend himself, Fang Yan's chest would have collapsed, and he would have been beaten to death and knocked out. Bang! Fang Yin fell to the ground again. After struggling for a while, he climbed up from the pile of rocks with great difficulty. His head and face were covered in dust, other than his blood-red eyes, which still shone with a strong and unyielding light. It was difficult to distinguish his facial features from the dust. Fang Yin straightened his body again and walked towards the man in the gray robe. His body was even more bent, and when he walked, he looked like a cooked shrimp. His body swayed, but every step he took was unusually firm. His eyes were fixed on his target, the man in gray who had sent him flying again and again. He only had one target, the man in gray who had taken away his father's killer, Bai Xiao, and was about to take his life. He knew that the man in gray was very strong. He knew that the man in gray had made a name for himself decades before him. He knew that the man in gray was one of the few experts in the world. He knew that even the old drunkard Mo Qingdi might not be able to block him. So what? Was that the reason for his retreat and escape? Besides, Fang Yin knew very well that although he did not know the identity of this gray-robed man, the fact that he had interfered to protect Bai Xiao at this time proved that he was the more powerful mastermind that Phoenix had mentioned. He held a dominant position in this assassination plot, or rather, a dominant position. Bai Xiao was his mortal enemy, and this gray-robed man was similarly his mortal enemy. If he begged for mercy this time, how would he face them next time? If he retreated this time, when would he be able to avenge his father? Based on Fang Yan's understanding of Bai Xiao, if he managed to escape this time, he would definitely conceal his identity and even disfigure himself so that no one would be able to find him again. Fang Yin had no choice but to persist, and he had no choice but to be an idiot. Quang, quang, quang. Because every step he took was very firm, his footsteps seemed very heavy. With every step Fang Yin took, rocks would be crushed and grass would ooze juice out of the ground. Whoosh! The gray-robed man's body disappeared. When he reappeared, his palm was aimed at Fang Yan's chest. There were no complicated movements, no shadows of palms filling the sky. It was just a simple, seemingly ordinary palm. Of course, the palm was so fast that it almost stopped one's breath. Bang! Just as the gray-robed man's palm was about to hit Fang Yan's chest, something strange happened. A fist appeared in front of his palm, and the fist arrived at lightning speed. It was the fist that Fang Yin had intercepted. Fang Yin had prepared countless times, and this time, he finally grasped the trajectory of the gray-robed man's palm. Boom! The palm and the fist collided, and the strong energy carried out a fierce battle. Crack, crack! The air was burned, and the space was torn apart. The palm and fist that collided could no longer be seen clearly. I blocked it, Fang Yin grinned. This was his ideal, his goal. He wanted to kill the gray-robed man with one punch. But of course, he knew that was impossible. Therefore, he only wanted to receive a palm strike from him. He wanted to fight head-on with his palm strike. Do you think you can block me like this? The gray-robed man's body became illusory again. Fang Yin knew that this was the natural reaction of the human body when his speed reached an extreme state. For example, in the American TV series The Flash, when a human body surpassed a certain law, there could be two real you. It could even run to the past and the future. Dream on. The gray-robed man's palm that collided with Fang Yan's fist suddenly increased its strength. Fang Yin also increased his strength at the same time. This was the use of the second drive. Normally, when a person punched, there would be a process of retracting and accumulating strength. But for these peerless experts, this process could be reduced or completely eliminated. They could keep using strength. Second drive, third drive, or even a legendary fourth drive. Boom! The two men's chi collided once again. Fang Yin's chest tightened, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. The gray-robed man's body trembled, and a pained expression appeared on his face. From the outside, the gray-robed man's palm and Fang Yan's fist never separated at all. It looked like the two of them were constantly competing with each other's internal energy. But the gray-robed man and Fang Yin knew that they had already fought 3 times in an instant. Each time was extremely dangerous, and if they were not careful, they would be smashed to pieces. Boom! The gray-robed man increased his strength again, and Fang Yin followed suit. A battle of 3 forces. The Tai Chi heart in his body spun wildly, and the Tai Chi twin fish continuously transferred vitality and energy to Fang Yan's fist. If not for the formation of the Tai Chi twin fish, Fang Yin would have been completely exhausted, and he would have been trampled by the gray-robed man. Fang Yin was just about to exert his strength for the 4th time when an extremely sharp energy suddenly came from the gray-robed man's palm. Palm sword, or rather, it was the palm chi sword. Using chi to condense into a sword, it could kill people without leaving a trace. Fang Yin only felt a sharp pain in his fist, and then his body flew backward. Crack! This time, he fell more miserably and heavily than the countless times before. When he wanted to use his elbow and knee to prop his body up, his arm went limp, and his upper body that had just lifted up fell to the ground again. Fang Yin lay on the hard and uneven ground and looked up at the dark sky above his head. There was no moon or stars in the sky, only a huge black screen. It blotted out the air, the light, and the hope. Fang Yin felt that it was getting harder and harder to breathe, and he felt that his chest was getting more and more stifled. He had a strong urge. He wanted to tear the black screen above his head, and he wanted to breathe in the fresh air outside. Fang Yin raised the fist that he had used to attack the gray-robed man into the air. His fist was burning with pain, and when he raised it up, it was trembling nonstop. Bright red blood flowed out of the wound. This fist was also ruined. I can't lower my head. Fang Yin gritted his teeth and said to himself, "The crown will fall." Like a hedgehog, he rolled on the ground before using his legs to prop himself up. I can't bleed, Fang Yin once again told himself. Only fools can laugh. He tore off a piece of cloth from his body and tightly bandaged the wound on his hand that was caused by the sword energy. Then, he looked at where the gray-robed man was standing and once again walked towards him. If you can't kill me, I'll kill you. This was the only thought in Fang Yan's mind. The gray-robed man's expression was extremely ugly. Fang Yin kept getting up and charging at him again and again. To the gray-robed man, this was a provocation. He coldly stared at Fang Yin and said, "It seems that you're prepared to die." "I'm not." Fang Yin smirked, blood dripping from the corner of his mouth. "Death. I wouldn't be able to prepare for it even if I had 100 years. I have to say, I admire your perseverance, but I've already lost my patience with you," the gray-robed man said. "Originally, I didn't intend to kill anyone tonight, but I've changed my mind. Witnessing the birth of a miracle is a wonderful thing, but killing a miracle is also a memorable experience." The gray-robed man's voice became weaker and weaker. His body had already disappeared. Fang Yin was on guard, waiting for him to attack again. What surprised him was that this time, the gray-robed man didn't immediately attack, nor did he strike his chest. His body turned into a gentle breeze, circling around Fang Yan's body. Whoosh! As soon as his body appeared, Fang Yan threw a punch. Rip! Fang Yan's fist struck the man's black robe, causing the robe to let out the sound of cloth ripping. But Fang Yin knew that he had fallen into a trap. Golden cicada shedding. Fang Yin felt the back of his throat tighten. Then he lost control of his body. The gray-robed man's body was so small and thin, but he easily lifted Fang Yan's body into the air. While holding Fang Yan's throat, The black-robed man looked at Fong Yan's reddened face and said, "You are a genius, but you are still too young." Dash, as he exerted more and more force, Fong Yan's consciousness became more and more hazy. He didn't break Fong Yan's neck right away. Instead, he wanted to slowly kill Fong Yan and suffocate him to death. The martial fanatic panicked, ran towards the gray-robed man, and struck his back with his palm. Crack, 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 cracking palm. As the gray-robed man swung his left hand, the cracking air from the cracking palm disappeared. "Do you know what you're doing?" The gray-robed man's gray eyes stared straight at the martial fanatic and asked in a low voice. "Spare his life. He's too young. He doesn't understand." Dash, the martial fanatic begged. "It's too late," the gray-robed man replied. "No one can have a second chance." Dash, Fong Yin, Dash Phoenix wanted to get up from the ground, but she had lost so much blood that she couldn't support her body anymore. She didn't even have the strength to stand up. She could only angrily scream Fong Yan's name, unable to do anything to help Fong Yan. "Song Zai, why do you have to do this?" A clear and gentle voice came from above. Chapter 595. Song Transplanting Seedlings. The Tao addict was in charge of the world. This man in gray was Song Transplanting Seedlings, one of the 7 addicts of Huaxia. The monk and the Taoist priest descended from the sky and stood in front of the man in gray like a god. The monk looked at the dying Fong Yin in the hands of the man in gray and said, "Why bother with a child in a conflict between adults? Compared to him, how old are you? Transplanting seedlings, forgive and forget. Give me Fong Yin." The man in gray stared coldly at the monk and the Taoist priest in front of him and said coldly, "Bald donkey, you always come to ruin my plans. I can give you face for other things, but I can't give you face for this kid. I said he must die." Song Transplanting Seedlings. Do you know what you are doing? When has our Taoism ever had an executioner who kills innocent people? Tianjizi said angrily. He had a good impression of Fong Yin and had always regarded Fong Yin as the future hope of Tai Chi. He had even repeatedly suggested that the Tai Chi diagram be handed over to Fong Yin for safekeeping. Now, seeing Tao addict Song Zaniang trying to kill a young martial arts star despite his age and seniority, he was naturally furious and could not help but reprimand him. "Tianjizi, why do you have to talk to me like this? Even if your shameless master stood in front of me, he would only respectfully call me eldest martial brother." Song Transplanting Seedlings looked at Tianjizi with disdain and said, "Besides, now you admit that I'm a member of the Tao sect? When you expel me from the temple, did you ever think that one day you would need my help? Song Transplanting Seedlings, how dare you mention what happened in the past? You are so vicious that you will not be tolerated in the Taoist temple. Besides, if it were not for the sake of brotherhood and your sincere repentance, the temple master would have locked you up in the Monkey Mountain for the rest of your life. How could he allow you to deceive those fools and do so many evil things?" Tianjizi seemed to be very familiar with the Tao addict's Song Transplanting Seedlings, and they had a close relationship. Therefore, he was very dissatisfied with what he had done. Song Transplanting's eyes were dark and fierce. He stared at Tianjizi and said, "It seems that you are here today to punish me. If it weren't for Fong Yu, I wouldn't have bothered with you. But today, you have to hand over Fong Yin to us. What if I don't hand over Fong Yin? What can you do to me?" "Then don't blame me for being impolite," Tianjizi said coldly as he held the horsetail whisk in his hand. "Let's put the past aside." The long-browed monk looked at Fong Yin in the hands of the Tao addict and said, "Transplant the seedlings and give the child to us." Today's matter had come to an end. What do you think? A baldy like you also wants to stand up for this kid. To tell you the truth, he is the candidate that the old Taoist and I have set our eyes on, the long-eyebrowed monk said truthfully. "Protect Longtu?" Song Transplanting Seedlings sneered and said, "The candidates are getting worse with each generation. Fortunately, you weren't chosen back then." Heavens, Jizi mocked. "If you were chosen, then each generation would truly be worse than the previous one." Tianjizi, am I not speaking the truth? Heavens, Jizi sneered. "It's human nature to say that the grapes are sour when you can't eat them. It has nothing to do with how many years you've lived. Ba." The long-eyebrowed monk put his palms together and said, It's more important to save the child. Please don't argue. Transplant seedlings, you're a wise man. Today's situation has come to this point, and it doesn't matter who wins or loses. Give me the child, and this matter will come to an end. How about that? Song transplanting seedlings was hesitant. If the old Taoist and I join hands to snatch the child, surely it won't be easy for transplant seedlings? The white-browed monk looked at Song transplanting seedlings and said, "Today is really eye-opening. Even a monk knows how to threaten. It ba." The long-eyebrows monk lowered his head and chanted, I've sinned. Bald donkey, you've sinned greatly, Song transplanting seedlings said. If you want Fong Yin, then take him. As he spoke, Song transplanting seedlings raised Fong Yin in his hand and threw him toward the long-eyebrows monk. The long-eyebrows monk reached out and caught Fong Yin in his arms. He touched his chest, but there was no heartbeat. He checked his breath, but there was no breath. Fong Yin. The long-eyebrows monk shouted Fong Yin's name. No one answered. Fong Yin, wake up. The divine Jizi placed his palm on Fong Yin's chest and transferred his qi into Fong Yin's body. However, there was still no reaction from Fong Yin. It was as if Fong Yin was dead, and there was no longer any perception of the outside world. Fong Yin. How is Fong Yin? Phoenix couldn't get up, but after hearing the long-eyebrows monk and the divine Jizi shouts, she immediately had a premonition that something bad had happened. Her voice was hoarse and weak, and she desperately tried to get up from the big rock. But as soon as she stuck her head out, her body fell to the ground. She tried to get up again, but accidentally fell under the rock. Song transplanting seedlings, the long-eyebrows monk was furious and said, How can you be so vicious? Obviously, Song transplanting seedlings did not want to agree to the long-eyebrows monk's request, and he knew that he could not take Fong Yin away under the joint efforts of the long-eyebrows monk and the divine Jizi, so he killed him in advance. The divine Jizi was even more furious. With a sweep of the horsetail whisk in his hand, a majestic chi came out of nowhere and smashed towards Song, transplanting seedlings like a wall of chi. The divine Jizi swept the horsetail whisk again, and the wall of chi was divided into countless thin lines. Each thin line became a sharp arrow, flying toward the Tao-Attic Song, transplanting seedlings. Song transplanting seedlings roared and waved his hands in the air. Where his hands passed, there were two arcs of solidified chi standing upright in the air. If one looked carefully, they would find that these were two fish. The two fish of the Tai Chi twin fish. The Tao-Attic Song transplanting seedlings was originally born in Taoism, and his kung fu was naturally inseparable from the theory of yin and yang. Tai Chi Song transplanting seedlings punched out, and the two fish spun wildly. They took the initiative to collide with the chi arrows that filled the sky. The sound of clashing was endless, and there was a faint sound of gold and iron colliding in the air. The long-eyebrows monk held Fong Yin with one hand, recited the Buddhist mantra, and slapped the back of the martial Attic Song, transplanting seedlings with the Buddha's golden light palm. When the long-eyebrows monk and the divine Jizi fought with the Tao-Attic Song, transplanting seedlings because of Fong Yin's death, Fong Yin, who was supposed to be dead, opened his eyes. During the 3 years of guarding his father's mausoleum, Fong Yin's brain was groggy and his heart was like dead ashes most of the time. He could not taste the food, and he could not sleep well at night. Therefore, at that time, he developed a habit of soaking his whole body in the bathtub, creating a state of suspended animation. At the beginning, Fong Yin could only hold on for a few minutes. Later, the practice time became longer and longer, and Fong Yin could almost hold on for an hour. He did not need to breathe, and his lungs did not need a constant supply of fresh oxygen. He used the heart of Tai Chi to carry out the overall circulation of his body, and the power of Tai Chi to maintain the operation of his body organs, so that his body could be integrated with the warm water in the tub. The bubbles that occasionally emerged were the body waste discharged by the heart of Tai Chi, and he only needed the most primitive Chi before entering the tub to keep going. Song transplanting seedlings was insidious and cunning. When he was talking with the long-eyebrows monk and the divine Jizi, he had secretly increased the strength of his hands. He really had the idea of strangling Fong Yin to death, and then throwing Fong Yan's body to the long-eyebrowed monk and the divine Jizi. Even if the monk and the Taoist were not satisfied, they would not risk their lives for an insignificant person. Even if they risked their lives, he could escape unscathed. When Fong Yan's consciousness started to blur, he started to enter a state of suspended animation. When Fong Yin was faking his death, he could actually be awakened by the outside world. When the long-eyebrowed monk called his name, he had already heard the other party's voice. When Tai Jizi transferred his Tai Chi into his body, he could even feel the powerful warm current flowing all over his body, making him feel very comfortable. However, Fong Yin resisted the urge to respond. As Fong Yin had expected, because of the misunderstanding of Fong Yan's death, the divine Jizi took the initiative to attack the Tao addict, Song transplanting seedlings. The long-eyebrowed monk followed closely behind and slapped him. While the long-eyebrowed monk was focused on the enemy, Fong Yan's body flipped over, and with a light leap, he escaped from the long-eyebrowed monk's arms. Then, he sprinted towards the place where Bai Xiu was lying on the ground. Seeing that the thunder-shocking sword was under his feet, he kicked with the tip of his foot, and the thunder-shocking sword jumped into the air. He picked up Bai Xiu's thunder-shocking sword, his body flying in the air, and the long sword fiercely stabbed at Bai Xiu's chest. Bai Xiu's eyes widened as he looked at all this, at the leaping Fong Yin. Wasn't he already dead? Why'd he come back to life? Dad, watch from the sky, Fong Yin roared sternly. He was sent flying again and again, but he got up again and again. He was not afraid of the strong, and he was not afraid of death. He just wanted to seek justice for his father who had died a tragic death. Everything he had done was for this purpose. If he could do it, he felt that everything he had done was meaningful. In life, who didn't do a few stupid things? Fong Yan's body flew upside down, and the long sword in his hand made a buzzing sound. That was caused by Fong Yin using too much force. He was afraid that he could not stab Bai Xiu to death, so he used all the strength in his body. Goodbye. Bai Xiu opened his mouth and laughed. It seemed to be a mockery of Fong Yin, but also an affirmation of Fong Yan's behavior. He was saying goodbye to Fong Yin. Crack! The long sword pierced through the flesh and into Bai Xiu's body. He died without regrets. Chapter 596. The mountain breeze was cool, but it couldn't cool people's hearts. Jiang Junling felt that his heart was very cold. He felt that this world was really too dark. He was determined to succeed in this trip to Huacheng. He came full of confidence. Although he never said it out loud, he did have the thought of avenging his shame in his heart. Other people also thought so. Otherwise, why would he chase after Fong Yin when he just returned to Huacheng after his 3 years of mourning? Fong Yin had used all sorts of strange moves, but Fong Yin managed to turn the tables time and time again. In the process of clashing with Fong Yin, Jiang Junling never gained any advantage. Instead, his face was beaten red and swollen by Fong Yin time and time again. Jiang Junling really liked the saying, turning the hand over the clouds and turning the hand over the rain. But he could only helplessly watch others put this saying on top of Fong Yin's head. Because Fong Yin couldn't win for a long time, Jiang Junling could only defend Huacheng, unable to escape. All kinds of gossip started in Yanjing City, and some important people in the family began to doubt his ability to control the overall situation. Some people objected, some people scolded, some people sat on the sidelines and watched the fire burn, and some people ridiculed. It was also because of the pressure from all sides that Jiang Junling designed such a sure-kill situation. He spent so much time and manpower, but the result was so unsatisfactory. Jiang Junling wanted to point to the sky and curse. Even if Fong Yin is your son, isn't your favoritism a little too much? In just one night, you let him obtain the light of Tai Chi, you let him complete the Tai Chi Pisces, and the reinforcements you send are stronger than the last. How do you want people to live? Why don't you just give him the blessing of Vajra and make him immortal? Do you have the ability to make him a god or an immortal? Jiang Junling felt that the world was dark and the heavens were unfair. That kid lived like he was cheating. Who would be willing to touch him? Ordinary people know the hearts of old friends, but old friends are fickle. Jiang Junling sighed softly. In the boundless universe, there are all sorts of strange things. Today has really broadened my horizons. He had seen many people with exuberant destinies, but a person like Fong Yin who had such a strong destiny was truly rare in the world. If even this couldn't kill him, how heaven-defying would he become in the future? There was a pavilion behind him with a stone table and stone chairs. There was wine on the stone table. It was the best champagne they had carried up from the foot of the mountain. Jiang Junling was not used to drinking champagne. He felt that it was not as refreshing and fiery as white wine, nor was it as gorgeous and elegant as red wine. But he liked champagne to celebrate the good omens of victory. This bottle of wine was originally prepared to be used to celebrate the victory of the war, but now it seemed that there was no need for it. Jiang Junling looked at the champagne on the table and felt that it was a mockery of himself. Picking up the bottle of champagne, he was about to throw it far away at the foot of the mountain when someone behind him shouted, "Don't throw it. You can't throw it away. It would be a pity to throw such good wine away." Figures flashed, and a group of people quickly rushed into the pavilion. The leader was a middle-aged man in a black suit. He greeted Jiang Junling with a smile and said, "Second young master, if I'm not mistaken, this bottle of champagne is the 1998 Cook En Bong Black Diamond Champagne, right? A bottle costs thousands of dollars, and there's no market for it. It's really not easy to drink it usually. My brothers and I have been climbing the mountain all night, and now we're really a little thirsty. If you don't mind, can you reward us with this bottle of wine to moisten our throats?" While the man in the suit was speaking, the men in black that he had brought with him spread out and surrounded the General Ling in the middle. Jiang Junling seemed not to feel the abnormality of the others. He looked at the man in the suit in front of him and said, "Li Guoqiang, you came all the way from Yinjing City to this Sword Peak. Surely it's not to drink this champagne, right?" "Of course not," Li Guoqiang said with a smile. "However, if we can drink a sip of Pinot Noir champagne before we talk business, then this trip will be even more worthwhile." Jiang Junling smiled and shook his head. He handed over the champagne bottle in his hand and said, "I originally thought I wouldn't need it, so I wanted to throw it away. Now that you mention it, I also feel that it's a pity to throw it away. If you're interested, then drink it. Just take it as an early celebration for my big brother." "Thank you, second young master." Li Guoqiang took the champagne, shook it a few times skillfully, and suddenly stabbed it into the sky. Bang! A muffled sound was heard, and then the champagne in the bottle sprayed out. Li Guoqiang drank 2 mouthfuls of the bottle, then handed the bottle in his hand to a man in black beside him. He looked at Jiang Junling and said, "Good wine, it's really good wine. If it wasn't for second young master's generosity, it really wouldn't be easy for us to drink such good wine." Jiang Junling smiled as he watched the champagne bottle being passed around in the hands of the men in black. He said, "What's a bottle of champagne? If you like it, I'll get someone to send you a few boxes of better wine when we get back." Li Guoqiang waved his hand and said, "No, this can't be done. If the young masters of Yanjing knew that the eldest young master was going to send wine to me, Li Guoqiang, would I have the guts to walk out of my house? They would probably tear me apart." "Who is the second young master?" "He's a god in everyone's heart. Who would dare to drink wine given by a god?" A murderous intent flashed in Jiang Junling's eyes. He looked at Li Guoqiang with a smile and said, "Guoqiang, you're here to laugh at me, right? Second young master, how can you say that? How can I laugh at second young master? I'm here to cheer for second young master," Li Guoqiang said with a serious face. "I also just heard that second young master is going to hold a champagne banquet tonight at Mount One Sword and invited many famous stars. Although I didn't receive an invitation, I still rushed over. I think second young master won't blame me for coming without an invitation, right?" Li Guoqiang looked at Mount One Sword and asked, "Second young master, what's the situation? Our contestants should have one, right?" "I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint Guoqiang." Jiang Junling said calmly, "We lost. Lost. Lost." Jiang Junling answered with absolute certainty. Li Guoqiang sighed deeply and said, "It seems that I came late and couldn't help second young master much." The smile on Jiang Junling's face disappeared. He said, "Guoqiang, we're all old acquaintances. There's no need to hide anything. If you have something to say, just say it. That big brother of mine told you to come over and watch. He wouldn't just say a few sarcastic words and complete the mission, right?" Li Guoqiang laughed and clapped. He said, "Second young master is indeed wise. I knew that I can't hide anything from you. You also know that I, Li Guoqiang, am timid and thin-skinned. Originally, there were some things that I couldn't say and some things that I was too embarrassed to do. But under second young master's encouragement, I felt that I should try my best." Jiang Junling looked at Li Guoqiang with certainty. He asked, "Then tell me properly, did General Xing ask you to cripple me or kill me? I hope it's the latter. That way, it proves that my big brother is the same kind of person I know." Second young master, "Actually, this matter really has nothing to do with eldest young master. You know eldest young master's character. He likes to go sightseeing, ride horses, and shoot arrows. He's too lazy and doesn't want to worry about anything. It's just that us brothers couldn't stand it anymore and wanted to help eldest young master get something back. It has nothing to do with him." A mocking smile appeared on General Ling's face. "Li Guoqiang, you said that my big brother is lazy and likes to go sightseeing, ride horses, and shoot arrows. When you said this, did you believe it? Do you think anyone in Yanjing City would believe it? An ambitious guy, in order to prove that he doesn't fight or snatch, that he doesn't have any desire for power, spouts nonsense and acts crazy all day long. If he's not reluctant to leave the flowers and ruin his reputation, then he's at a loss for what to do. Does he think that he can deceive everyone's eyes like this? Does he think everyone is an idiot? Childish. Really childish. If he's really a man, he might as well stand up and fight with me. That way, he would be valued by more people. Unfortunately, he doesn't. He can only hide behind the crowd like a turtle, shooting arrows from time to time and spreading rumors. Don't you feel ashamed?" "Ha ha ha." Li Guoqiang clapped his hands and laughed. He said, "Second young master's words are incisive, and you scold me to your heart's content. I've also discussed this issue with eldest young master before. I also told him what you said, but eldest young master's answer made me feel enlightened. Do you know how eldest young master answered me? I'm really curious." Jiang Junling sneered. "Eldest young master said that if everyone thinks that my acting is clumsy, then it proves that my acting is successful." Li Guoqiang said, "I'm not trying to get the acting emperor. Why would I need such superb acting skills?" Jiang Junling's face sank, and the sharpness in his eyes became even more intense. General Xing's words were deeply philosophical. If he jumped out to fight with him, he would have long regarded him as his biggest opponent and wholeheartedly stepped on him. If everyone thought that he really didn't have any desires, then with his sensitive and suspicious character, he would naturally think that he was hiding something and had a big plan. He would even think of a way to kick him out of the game. The wonderful thing was that his clumsy acting skills were that he didn't want anything. But secretly, he was constantly making small moves. This would make people underestimate and belittle him, thinking that his level was only SOSO. In this way, when he suddenly jumped out and brandished his bayonet, it was truly impossible to guard against. Like now. Jiang Junling nodded and said, "Brilliant. His words also convinced me. Now you can tell me what is it he wants?" Li Guoqiang's sharp eyes stared at Jiang Junling and said, "I know that second young master is generous. He just gave us a bottle of champagne. Can I ask for something else from second young master? What is it? Lend me your life. How about it?" Chapter 597. Anything could be borrowed, but not one's life. Everyone only had one life. If someone else borrowed it, they would become a dead person. Of course, Jiang Junling knew very well that these people came to make him a dead person who couldn't be said to be motionless. A dead person wouldn't fight with people over anything. Many people like dead people. Li Guoqiang wanted to borrow Jiang Junling's life, naturally to kill Jiang Junling. Jiang Junling stared at Li Guoqiang with biting cold eyes, as if he was spying on the truth of his words. Li Guichang also stared back at Jiang Junling with the same cold eyes, without the slightest fear. He used his actions to prove the truth of his words. Jiang Junling laughed out loud and looked at Li Guichang, saying, "When I saw you appear, I knew Big Brother's intention. Before, I was worried that Big Brother would be too soft-hearted and wouldn't be able to achieve great things. Now that I see how cruel and unscrupulous you are and how vicious you are, I am completely relieved." "Don't blame the eldest young master," Li Guichang said with a dignified expression. "He is the eldest son of the general family. He is the eldest brother of the general family. In the end, because of the words one should have a son like Jiang Junling, he was suppressed for so many years and achieved nothing. All the glory gathered on your head, and all the benefits were taken by you. When others introduced the eldest young master, they all said, 'This is Jiang Junling's eldest brother.' The eldest young master feels wronged and uncomfortable." "I understand." Jiang Junling nodded seriously and said, "I understand. Big Brother has had a hard time these years. He has such great ambition, but he doesn't have the treatment and platform to match it. He spends all day sightseeing and doing nothing. It's natural for him to feel wronged. I can understand him spreading rumors in Yanjing City, saying that I was beaten to a pulp by Fong Yen. I can understand him encouraging the enemies of the family to unite and force grandfather to abdicate, saying that I can't bear the heavy responsibility. If it were me, I would have done the same. I would have done it even more ruthlessly and resolutely than him. So, even if he wanted to kill me, I can understand. Who asked me to be the tiger in his way? If he didn't get rid of me, how could he have the chance to rise?" "Tiger in the way?" Li Guichang said with a face full of ridicule. "I'm afraid he's just a paper tiger." "No, it's a tiger in the way," Jiang Junling said. "When a tiger falls, he will be bullied by a dog." "Li Guichang, when we were in Yanjing, did you dare to talk to me with this attitude? That time has changed. No man could be happy for 100 days, and no flower could bloom for 100 days. This was the cycle of heaven and human nature. A loss is a loss. The disparity is too great. Can't you bear it now?" General Ling shrugged his shoulders indifferently and said, "His face doesn't look too good. Guichang, you guys stay by Big Brother's side. You must remind him. Tell Jun Xing to avoid clashing with him as much as possible. Once he makes a move, use the force of a thunderbolt and give him a fatal blow. This brat Zodiac is like a cockroach. He's tenacious." "Thank you for the reminder, second young master," Li Guichang said with a smile. He waved his hand, and the unfinished bottle of champagne was brought over. Then he handed the champagne to Jiang Junling and said, "Second young master, I don't have much to give you. Have a sip? Take a sip, and we'll be on our way." Jiang Junling didn't reach out to take the wine bottle. He looked at Li Guichang and said, "I've made a big fool of myself, so I can't go back to Yanjing City. Even if I went back, I would only be ridiculed by others for nothing. The arguments against me within the general family were getting louder and louder. And if I went back, I would only make things difficult for my grandfather. If I don't go back, Big Brother's ascension to the throne will become a matter of course." Jiang Junling looked at Li Guichang with a sincere expression and said, "Go back and tell Big Brother that we'll have to rely on him to support the family from now on. I will do my best to support him from behind the scenes. I'm afraid I can't." Li Guichang shook his head. "Although I'm very grateful for second young master's generosity, and I'm also grateful for second young master's various tasks, but second young master is still dead, right? As long as second young master is dead, then we can be completely at ease. I'm not afraid of second young master laughing at me. How much courage do I, Li Guichang, usually have to say such things to second young master? In this life, how many opportunities do I have to force second young master into such a difficult and dangerous situation? If you didn't want to kill Fong Yin tonight, if you didn't send out all the experts around you, even if we wanted to do something, I'm afraid it wouldn't be easy. Second young master, I still understand the principle of not missing an opportunity. So, second young master is still dead, right?" Jiang Junling sighed softly and said, "Guichang, I'm sincere. I really want to cooperate with Big Brother. He's in the light, and I'm in the dark. If we brothers work together, hand in hand, what can stop us in this world? I understand what you mean, but I can't die yet, and I can't lend my life to you. I just lost a Feng Yin, and I lost so miserably that I lost everything. I haven't gotten my revenge, so how can I die so selfishly? I still need some time, and I still have a lot of things to deal with. Besides, my life is beneficial to Big Brother. After he becomes the leader, he still has to face the threat of Feng Yin. We have the same enemy. I can help him do a lot of things. So, we can't talk, Li Guoqiang said with a smile. Li Guoqiang took a step back, and a middle-aged man with a crew cut rushed forward and punched Jiang Junling's head. Pa pa pa. The middle-aged man looked like he practiced internal martial arts. His punches were powerful, and there were sounds of bones cracking when he punched. There were 3 keys to punching: fierce, accurate, and fast. The middle-aged man was not only ferocious, but also accurate and fast. When he suddenly made a move, before you realized it, the fist was already about to break your head. Unfortunately, the exciting scene didn't appear. The middle-aged man's punch didn't break Jiang Junling's head. It was almost there. Almost there. The middle-aged man's fist reached Jiang Junling's face, but he couldn't push it forward. There was a hand on his neck, and it was that hand that made him lose all his strength, and he couldn't do anything more intense. It was Jiang Junling's hand. Jiang Junling's hand was strangling the middle-aged man's neck, and he looked at Li Guoqiang with a calm face and asked, "What do I have to do for you to let me live?" His left hand suddenly exerted force, and with a crack sound, the middle-aged man's body fell to the ground. "Is this what you want? You're courting death." Another black-clothed man rushed toward Jiang Junling. In the process of charging, he had already pulled out a sharp triangular dagger from his pocket. The man held the dagger upside down, jumped high, and stabbed at Jiang Junling's throat. Ha! His knife still couldn't stab through. Jiang Junling just raised his wrist, and the man's neck was strangled in his hand. Jiang Junling lifted the man's body in midair. The man's face was purple, and he struggled desperately. However, his struggle was so powerless. It was impossible to escape Jiang Junling's iron hand. He looked at Li Guoqiang and asked, "Is this how you want it?" Crack! Another crisp sound rang out, and the general's order once again crushed another man's neck. Li Guoqiang looked at Jiang Junling with a face full of shock and said, "Second young master, extraordinary skill." No one knew that Jiang Junling knew Kung Fu. No one in the entire Yanjing city knew that Jiang Junling's skill was so powerful. It should be known that the people that Li Guoqiang brought were also very good fighters. The first person whose neck was broken by Jiang Junling was an outstanding figure of Xing, Yiquan's 9th generation, and the second man with a military knife was a special forces soldier who had completed many SS-level missions abroad. However, these people were a group of chickens and dogs in front of Jiang Junling. No matter which angle they attacked from, the result was the same. They couldn't even withstand a single blow. "Are you a little disappointed?" Jiang Junling patted the dust off his hand and looked at Li Guoqiang with a smile. Li Guoqiang waved his hand, and the surrounding black-clothed men rushed toward Jiang Junling together. "Stupid," Jiang Junling said. His body turned into a shadow, and he passed through the crowd. Every time this sound was heard, a black-clothed man would fall to the ground. When Jiang Junling's body stopped again, none of the black-clothed men that Li Guoqiang brought could stand. All of them were lying on the ground in disorder, and there was no pain on their faces. Jiang Junling looked at Li Guoqiang with some regret and said, "I don't like you. It's a pity." Unfortunately, he didn't finish his words, but Li Guoqiang knew that it was a pity that he couldn't kill him. "Someone has to go back and tell my cunning brother. Tell him that I'm sincerely willing to cooperate with him. Don't you think so?" Jiang Junling looked at Li Guoqiang and asked. Li Guoqiang's mouth was full of bitterness, and he nodded and said, "Yes. Then I'll have to trouble you." Jiang Junling patted Li Guoqiang's shoulder and said with a smile. Li Guoqiang's body softened, and he almost fell to the ground. When Jiang Junling's hand touched his body, his first reaction was that Jiang Junling wanted to kill him. Jiang Junling looked back at Sword Peak again, and then his body flew down the mountain like a goshawk. Chapter 598. There was the pleasant chirping of birds and the refreshing fragrance of flowers. There was the warmth of the sun, and there was the refreshing air. When Fong Yin opened his eyes, he saw another pair of eyes. "You're awake?" The divine Jizi greeted Fong Yin with a smile as he continued to work on the silver needles. The silver needles made a buzzing sound because of the divine Jizi's powerful qi. Fong Yin looked down and found that he was lying there naked, allowing a middle-aged uncle to do whatever he wanted to his body. Of course, he might not have had the time to do it yet. "Where is this? Is Phoenix okay? Is Bai Xiu dead? Did you too kill that old man Song Jianqing?" Fong Yin wanted to get up, but found that he couldn't move his body at all. Every time he used force, his body felt like it was being torn into countless pieces. Fong Yin's head was dizzy, and his vision darkened. He almost fainted again. His mouth didn't have any problems, so he asked a series of questions. Fong Yin's memory still stopped at the scene of him piercing Bai Xiu's chest and Xiu Mu rushing up to punch him. He couldn't remember what happened after that. The divine Jizi quickly inserted the silver needles into the acupoints on Fong Yin's chest. He looked at Fong Yin and said, "Don't move, it hurts." Fong Yin looked at him sadly and said, "Why didn't you say so earlier? When you opened your eyes just now, even if I told you not to move, you might not have listened to me." The divine Jizi had a proud look on his face and said, "Now you probably don't want to move, right?" Fong Yin was very depressed. Why was it that he always met a bunch of bastards? Your body is seriously injured, your internal organs are seriously displaced, your meridians are blocked, and your qi and blood are blocked. I'm currently massaging and using silver needles to help you recover. You haven't answered my question yet, Fong Yin said. You asked so many questions in one go. Which one do you want to hear my answer the most? Where's the Phoenix? Is she all right? Fong Yin looked expectantly at Tian Jizi and asked, "Even heroes have a weakness for the charms of beautiful women. It seems that in your heart, the one you care about the most is still that girl." Tian Jizi teased, "Because I probably already have the answers to the other questions." Fong Yin said, "I believe that my sword strike has already killed Bai Xiu. If he's still not dead after that, then the heavens must be blind. As for that old man Song transplanting rice, he's definitely not dead. You can't possibly kill him. Why can't we kill him?" Tian Jizi looked at Fong Yin with a displeased expression and said, "Do you think the monk and I are no match for him?" "That's not it," Fong Yin said. "In this vast world, there are less than 10,000 people who can defeat you and the old monk at the same time." "What do you mean less than 10,000? Not even a single one," Tian Jizi said angrily. When it came to his own ability and dignity, even a Taoist with a pure heart and few desires couldn't remain calm. "Then why did you let Song transplanting rice run away?" Fong Yin asked in return. Tian Jizi was speechless. Only then did he realize that he had jumped into the language trap set by Fong Yin. "No one in this world can beat you. How could you let Song transplanting rice run away?" Fong Yin grinned. His face was also burning with pain. He couldn't help but worry and said, "I'm not disfigured, right?" Tian Jizi looked at Fong Yin and said, "It's fine, it's not too badly ruined. How do you know Song transplanting rice is not dead?" Tian Jizi asked again. "Because you and the old monk didn't do anything," Fong Yin said. "Song transplanting rice is my enemy. It has nothing to do with you. You can protect me, but you will never fight to the death for me. You don't have to feel ashamed. This is human nature. If Song transplanting rice was your opponent, I wouldn't risk my life to fight him. Only when it comes to your own life and death can you unleash your infinite potential." "You guessed correctly," Tian Jizi nodded and said, "Song transplanting rice is still alive, Changmei, and I didn't make him stay." "It doesn't matter," Fong Yin said proudly. "Keep him, I'll kill him." "Do you remember what happened last night?" Tian Jizi asked. "I only remember that I stabbed Bai Xiu to death," Fong Yin said. "I don't know what happened after that. Originally, we all thought you were dead, so the monk and I surrounded Song transplanting rice to avenge you. But we didn't expect you to jump out of the monk's arms and run to stab Bai Xiu. The scene at the time was so strange that everyone was dumbfounded and felt that the fight couldn't continue. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to lie to you," Fong Yin said embarrassedly. No matter what, Tianjizi and Changmei Monk came for him. There were benevolent elders who stood on his side. He lied to others by faking his death, but he also lied to those who truly cared about him. Otherwise, Tianjizi and Changmei Monk wouldn't have gone to fight Song transplanting rice. It was also because he knew that faking his death would anger Tianjizi and Changmei Monk that he had the chance to kill Bai Xiao. Fong Yin took advantage of the relationship between Tianjizi and Changmei Monk. Tianjizi looked at Fong Yin with burning eyes and said, "At that time, I clearly checked your chest and nose and found that you had lost all signs of life. You used a profound breathing technique?" "Yes," Fong Yin said. "Using the heart of Tai Chi to circulate inside the body, you can stop breathing and heartbeat for a short time. Everyone has different opportunities and fortunes. The gifts from heaven are also different," Tianjizi said. "After you stabbed Bai Xiao, you were sent flying with a punch. We picked you up from the ground and took you away. I don't know what happened after that. If you want to find a boyfriend, you should at least find someone as handsome, talented, and well-liked as me. That pretty boy, his face isn't even as white as mine. What's there to like about him? He's very cool. If what you mean by cool is putting on a dead face and not saying anything, then he's not even as cool as Uncle Wong in the village. Isn't Uncle Wong very cool when he's forging? Miss, let's go back. I've made up my mind." The plain-robed woman resolutely cut off the nostalgic past and answered firmly. "Miss, have you really made up your mind?" "Master, I'm sorry just now. I made up my mind. Then I'll shave your hair and receive the precepts for you," the old nun with the scissors said in a deep voice. "Thank you, master." The woman put her hands together and closed her eyes, ready to accept her master's shave. From now on, the past of the mortal world, love and hate, gratitude and enmity will have nothing to do with me. Chapter 599. The mountain was empty and the drizzle was hazy, causing one's mood to be a bit melancholy. Ho Jindong, the martial fanatic, was not only feeling melancholy, he also wanted to die. If the person you tricked before was now sitting in front of you and calling you senior martial fanatic, you would also want to die, or you would kill the other party. Ho Jindong regretted it. Why didn't he kill him at the summit of One Sword Peak? Senior martial fanatic, Fong Yin looked at Ho Jindong with a smile, as if he couldn't remember that he was tricked by this middle-aged man. "This is an adult ambergris I stole from Tianjizi. Not bad, right?" The tea was good, fragrant, and had the effect of nourishing the body and mind. But the martial fanatic, who was chewing on a piece of tea leaf, had a bitter taste in his mouth. With Fong Yan's intelligence, there was no way he didn't know why he lured him to One Sword Peak for the decisive battle, and what happened afterward almost took his life. But now, he acted as if nothing happened and was very respectful to him. His attitude was even more cordial than before, and he even gave him a priceless ambergris. There must be a reason for this. This brat had something to ask of him. "This is the best ambergris I've ever tasted." The martial fanatic looked at Fong Yin indifferently and said, "It is said that Buddhism and Taoism occupy most of the famous mountains and treasures in Huaxia. Take this ambergris, for example. If Tianjizi didn't take it from Taoism, we wouldn't have the fortune to taste it. Senior martial fanatic, if you like it, I can ask my master for a box." Fong Yin patted his chest confidently. "Tianjizi is your master?" The martial fanatic was startled and asked. "Yes," Fong Yin nodded. He had long felt that I was extremely talented and the new star of the Tai Chi branch. He had always wanted to take me as his disciple, and even said that he would give me the Tai Chi diagram to protect the dragon soul. He also said that he wanted me to inherit his legacy and become the master of Taoism, but I didn't agree. I already have a master. How could he take someone else as his master? Besides, I don't want to be a Taoist priest. I'm the only child of my family. What if they don't allow me to marry? You know what happened next? I was besieged by people in the solitary sword mountain and almost lost my life. It was he and Great Master Chong Mei who saved me. When he healed my wounds, He once again offered to take me as his disciple. I couldn't refuse. The martial addict nodded and said, "No wonder. No wonder." Previously, he had wondered why Tianjizi and Changmei, the two hidden masters, had appeared at the same time when Fang Yin was in trouble and insisted on taking Fang Yin away. When he mistakenly believed that Fang Yin was dead, he even did not hesitate to fight with the Tao addict, song transplanting. Now, he finally understood the crux of the matter. It turned out that Fang Yin and Tianjizi had a master-disciple relationship. Tianjizi is one of the 3G in the 3G and 7 mysteries of Taoism. He is the most likely candidate to inherit my master's mantle and become the new master of Taoism. You took him as your master because you held on to a very thick thigh. Although Monk Chang Mei doesn't ask about the affairs of Buddhism, as long as it's something he cares about, it's a big event of Buddhism. Neither of them holds a post in the sect, but they are responsible for the important task of finding a suitable successor for the Tai Chi diagram. The candidates chosen by them are all outstanding talents of the whole era. Qin Zoma hundreds of years ago, Chu Xianke, the madman 100 years ago, and your eldest brother Imo Qingdi. Which one of them is not an influential figure of the whole era? When they call for help, people will gather. They are the pillars of the whole Huaxia and the whole internal Jianghu. Fang Yin was shocked and asked, "Imo Qingdi once got the Tai Chi diagram. You don't know?" This time, it was the martial addict who was a little confused and asked. After thinking for a while, he smiled and said, "That's right. This kind of thing shouldn't be told to you in the first place. For us martial artists who pursue the path of martial arts, the Tai Chi diagram is a treasure. A man is innocent, but he gets into trouble because of his wealth. It's too dangerous. You're the only son of the Fang clan. If you get involved in trouble, I'm afraid your life will be in danger. You'll end your life early." Fang Yan's face was even more gloomy and asked, "Did the dragon god cut Imo Qingdi's tendons because he wanted to get the Tai Chi diagram?" "I don't know." The martial addict shook his head. "If there's a chance, you can ask him yourself, but I advise you not to meet him." "What kind of people are they?" "Legendary figures." "How are they compared to Song Jianqing?" "Ow." The martial addict smiled helplessly. "These people are mysterious, unless they want to see you, or you can't see them. The Black Dragon has been famous for decades. How many people can see him? Without a competition, how can you know who is strong and who is weak? Even if they were weak before, it's not impossible for them to become strong now. Everyone has their own opportunities, and it's not impossible to surpass them overnight." Fang Yin nodded and said, "I understand. But I still hope to meet the dragon god, the men of the Fang clan." The martial addict sighed softly. In the end, he didn't finish his sentence. The Fang Hui he knew was a stubborn man. The Azure Dragon Imo Qingdi he knew was a stubborn man. And the Fang Yin he knew was also a stubborn man. He didn't know if stubbornness was a good habit, but stubborn men sometimes made people feel sexy. "The men of the Fang clan are a bit stupid," Fang Yin said. People who practiced martial arts valued friendship above all else. In order to return someone else's favor, he hurt the righteousness in his heart. Was this right or wrong? But if it was for the righteousness in his heart, could he ignore the deep feelings he owed? If it wasn't for Song Zanyang's guidance that year, he might have been stuck in the martial barrier, unable to extricate himself, and become a psychopath who achieved nothing. Song Zanyang had given him a new lease on life. What happened in the past has happened. We don't need to take it to heart. What's in the past is in the past. Fang Yin had a magnanimous look on his face, his voice mournful. "But another tragedy is about to happen. Does senior martial addict want to trick me again?" "Lotus Temple," the martial addict replied. She went to Lotus Temple. Fang Yin jumped up from his chair, grabbed the dragon birth incense he gave to the martial addict, and shouted at the martial addict, "That old bastard tricked me at the top of One Sword Peak. Wait until I'm done with my business. Then I'll come find you for a good fight." Fang Yin was a man who held grudges. He was almost tricked to death by the martial addict, Ho Zhendong, at the top of One Sword Peak. How could such a deep grudge be resolved with just a few words? The martial addict held his teacup and blankly sat there. The cold wind was a bit chilly. the martial addict's body felt like it was frozen. How did that bastard grow up to be an adult? Didn't anyone think about strangling him to death when he was young? Chapter 600. Burning the bridge after crossing the river. Killing the donkey after it has outlived its usefulness. Cruel and unscrupulous bastard. Just as the martial addict was going berserk in the house, scolding Fong Yin for turning his back on him after using him, the wooden door was slammed open again with a bang. Fong Yin looked at the martial addict shyly and asked, "Where is the Lotus Temple?" After Fong Yin ran out of the martial addict's house, he remembered a very important thing. Where was the Lotus Temple? Although he was reluctant, he had no choice but to rush back to ask for the address and directions. Impulse is the devil. Get out, the martial addict shouted at Fong Yin. The Lotus Temple was located at the foot of Mount Lingshan. It got its name because there was a huge lotus pond in the backyard of the temple. The Lotus Temple was a nunnery. The incense was not strong, but it still stood for hundreds of years. Fong Yin rushed all the way in the direction of the Lotus Temple. The stingy martial addict did not tell him the specific direction of the Lotus Temple. Fong Yin did not have a mobile phone or a navigation device. It was not easy to find someone to ask in this bare mountain. Fortunately, he was lucky. After searching for a long time, he saw a stone sign on the side of a main road. The stone sign pointed the direction of the Lotus Temple. Only then did Fong Yin find the correct path. When Fong Yin arrived at the Lotus Temple, the brown door of the temple was closed. Fong Yin pulled the copper lock and shouted, "Is there anyone? Is there anyone?" There was no answer. Fong Yin patted the wooden door again and shouted in a louder voice, "Open the door. Phoenix, Phoenix, come out. Phoenix, I know you are inside." Fong Yin's voice startled the birds in the forest, and the rustling sounds of birds flying away could be heard. There was still no answer. Fong Yin pressed his hand on the wooden door and pushed it with all his might, but the wooden door did not budge. The wooden door looked old, but it was still very sturdy. Moreover, Fong Yin's physical injuries were quite serious. Although Tianjizi used golden needles to dredge his acupoints and circulate his blood every day, he could only ensure that he could move freely on the ground. It would still be a long process for him to recover and use his strength again. With Fong Yan's current physical condition, it would be difficult for him to even deal with a strong man. It was impossible to push down this door. He ran over and walked along the high walls of the Lotus Flower Temple for a while, then helplessly ran to the front door. He knocked on the door lock again and shouted, "Phoenix, come out quickly. Senior Martial Addict has told me that you are hiding inside." "Master, please open the door." "Master, my girlfriend is inside. She quarreled with me and ran away. If she makes any unreasonable requests, you must not agree. Phoenix, come out quickly." "You're pregnant with my child. You can't shave your head and become a nun. The child can't have a nun mother. How can he go out and meet people in the future? Abbess, please open the door and let me in. Nuns, please answer me. Is there anyone inside? Abbess, let me in. Let me go in and talk to my girlfriend. Old nuns, open the door quickly. Otherwise, I will burn down your broken temple. Don't think that I don't dare. I, Jiang Junling, could do anything." Jie, the wooden door, was finally opened from the inside. A middle-aged nun in a plain robe and a round hat stood at the door, staring at Fong Yin angrily. "Abbess, is my girlfriend inside?" When Fong Yin spoke, he wanted to squeeze in from the side of the middle-aged nun. The middle-aged nun reached out and pushed Fong Yin's body out. She had some martial arts skills when she made a move. Fong Yin's body staggered back and said angrily, "What's so great about a little martial arts? Do you know who I am? I'm Jiang Junling from a wealthy family in Yinjing. I'm telling you, don't mess with me." The middle-aged nun glanced at Fong Yin coldly and said, "Jiang Junling, didn't you want to burn down the temple? Do you still want to burn it? Do you think I don't dare? I just didn't bring a fire." "Pa." The nun raised her right hand, and a box-shaped object fell into Fong Yin's hand. "I have a fire here," the nun said. This nun was quite a character. Fong Yin held a box of matches in his hand and was trembling with anger. He growled at the middle-aged nun. "Do you think I have to burn it just because you want me to? Who do you think you are? Are you a monk or not? How can you instigate others to burn someone's temple? Do you know that you're violating the precepts? Buddha will punish you. Ba, good, good. The middle-aged nun stared at Fong Yin coldly and said, go back. The female benefactor said that she doesn't want to see you. I know she doesn't want to see me. Fong Yin said with a serious face. But I want to see her. And I have to see her. The frost on the middle-aged nun's face became thicker. Although it was said that monks should be compassionate and shouldn't have murderous thoughts, she couldn't help but want to be brutal to Fong Yin. Fong Yin saw the expression on the middle-aged nun's face and said in a deep voice, Master, I'm not joking with you. I want to see her, and I have to see her. Let me go in and take a look. Let me say a few words to her. I know that since she came here, it means that she has made a choice in her heart. I just want to say a few more words to her and persuade her. The middle-aged nun's face eased a little. She looked at Fong Yin and said, Since you know that she has made a decision, why do you still force her? She doesn't want to see you, and I can't do anything about it. Go back. Master, please help us. I can't live without her. If she becomes a nun, I won't be able to live. I'm sorry. I can't help you. From now on, our fate will be over. Take care of yourselves. Old nun, are you going to let me in or not? My girlfriend wants to become a nun. What's wrong with me going in to persuade her? Is your nunnery a black temple? You can only go in, but you don't want people to go out? How many people do you need? Otherwise, you will also recruit me. Presumptuous. The middle-aged nun raised her palm and was about to slap Fong Yin again. Fong Yin turned and ran. The middle-aged nun chased out of the door. After Fong Yin took her in a circle, he seized the opportunity to turn around and went into the gate of Lotus Flower Temple. Catch up. Stop. The middle-aged nun was so angry that she was about to go crazy. She chased after Fong Yin and shouted loudly. Fong Yin ran to the door of the temple hall and stopped. Ba, ba. Fong Yin put his palms together and chanted the name of Buddha in the temple hall. He had to stop because he was surrounded by a group of nuns. The skinny old nun who was the leader looked at Fong Yin and said, Benefactor, trespassing is forbidden in a Buddhist place. Benefactor, please step out of the door and give us pitiful people a peaceful place. Fong Yin put his palms together and saluted the old nun, saying, Master, I just want to see a friend. Please help me. It's not that I don't want to help you, but I can't force others to help you. What if your friend doesn't want to see you? What should I do? The nun asked. Then let her come out and tell me that she doesn't want to see me. Benefactor, you're making things difficult for me. The old nun said unhappily. Fong Yin bowed to the crowd again and said, I know I broke the rules of Buddhism, but please understand my sincerity. My friend is going to become a nun. If I can't stand up and do something at this critical moment, I won't be able to live in peace for the rest of my life. Fong Yin looked back at the middle-aged nun who was glaring at him and said, Instead of that, I'd rather be beaten by you. Monks pay particular attention to mercy. Anyway, you can't beat me to death. Seeing that the nuns were speechless and would not stop him for the time being, Fong Yin hurriedly shouted to the temple hall, Phoenix, I know you are inside. Come out. No one answered. Phoenix was still unwilling to talk. Do you think you can escape like this? Do you think you were the best choice? Just because you became a nun, you can pretend that nothing happened before? Well, even if these things didn't happen. But what about other things? Can we also pretend that it never happened? We met when you were 10 years old, and we have known each other for 13 years now. How many rabbits have we hunted together? How many sparrows have we caught together? How many bottles of your grandpa's Maudai have we secretly drunk? How many times have you bandaged me when I was injured? Because you would come, I began to look forward to the winter and summer holidays every year. Fong Yan's voice was still clearly transmitted to her ears. There was no point in deliberately running so far away to hide. I said I like you. Did you hear me? I owe you a face-to-face confession, and you owe me a face-to-face rejection. Why are you hiding like this? Phoenix's eyes reddened, and big tears rolled down her cheeks. The words of love that he couldn't say back then still made her cry like a fool. And Xiao Xiao, you know me. You know me better than anyone else, so you should understand that if you don't give me a clear answer, I won't leave. I'll sit in this temple. I'll stand guard at the entrance of this hall. I don't believe you can hide from me forever. And Xiao, come out quickly. Fang Yan's expression was conflicted as he shouted at the top of his lungs. Because he was too emotional, the wound on his chest was affected again. Fang Yan coughed violently, and his phlegm carried traces of dark red blood. Song Transplanting's palm strike was too heavy and almost took Fang Yan's life. Although he had been treated by Tianjizi, he still couldn't be too emotional. Fang Yan snuck out. With his current physical condition, if Tianjizi knew that he wanted to come out to find Phoenix, he wouldn't allow him to go out. So touching. A young nun looked at Fang Yan with a flushed face and said, "If I had such a man, it would be worth dying. If he had treated me like this back then, I wouldn't have." A middle-aged nun sighed sadly. "Benefactor." The old nun took out a white handkerchief from her pocket and handed it to Fang Yan, saying, "Don't be impatient. I'll go in and persuade her." Fang Yan took the handkerchief and wiped the corner of his mouth. With a face full of gratitude, he said to the old nun, "Thank you, Master. I've disturbed the peace of Buddhism. I'm a sinner, but if I don't disturb her this time, I'm not a man." "I understand. I understand." The old nun had a gentle smile on her face as she nodded and said, "I've seen and heard too much about young people's love affairs. When young people make mistakes, even Buddha will forgive them. But don't be too emotional. That will hurt your body." "I understand." Fang Yan nodded and said, "Master, can you go in and help me persuade her again and ask her to come out and see me?" "I promise you." The old nun said. "What if she still doesn't want to? Then I'll shout for a while more." Fang Yan said, "Her heart is soft. She'll be willing. It's like this every time." When the old nun was about to go in and persuade Phoenix, she turned around and stopped. Phoenix came out. Phoenix, with messy red hair and a plain robe, stood behind the nuns. Because she was too tall, she didn't have any obstructions in the field of vision. She looked at Fang Yan with teary eyes and said in a sobbing voice, "You know, this is the most embarrassing time for me to see anyone. The person I don't want to see the most is you. Why did you come here?" "I'm afraid that if I didn't come, I wouldn't be able to see you for the rest of my life," Fang Yan said with a smile. He was very happy that Phoenix finally appeared. "What are you doing here?" Phoenix asked. "To take you back," Fang Yan said. "Impossible." Phoenix said, "I've already decided. If you didn't knock on the door and disturb me, I would have already shaved my head and become a nun." Fang Yan laughed happily and said, "That's why I said that our fate in the mortal world is not over yet. Why didn't you shave yesterday? Why didn't you shave the day before yesterday? Why did you shave today when I came? Not the second before, not the second after, but when I knocked on the door. Even Buddha couldn't stand it anymore and didn't want to accept you as his disciple. So, don't go against Buddha's wishes." Fang Yan reached out to Phoenix and said, "Come back with me." Phoenix shook her head and said, "Fang Yan, I'm not going back. I don't want to go back." Fang Yan became anxious and said, "How can you do that? Once our child is born, how can you take care of it by yourself? Besides, if a nun in the nunnery gives birth to a child, if this kind of thing accidentally gets out..." The face of the abbot of the Lotus Temple, old nun Qingji, was pale. She looked at Phoenix with a frightened face and said, "Miss, are you pregnant?" "No," Phoenix denied. "Master, I'm not pregnant, I'm still..." "He deliberately deceived you because he didn't want you to take me in. This is his shameless style of doing things." Old nun Qingji looked at Phoenix with a solemn expression and said, "Miss, monks don't lie. Speak the truth and be honest. You can't deceive Buddha. If you're really pregnant, you should return to the secular world and get married and have children. This is a nunnery. We also have to take our reputation into consideration. If the nuns in the nunnery give birth, the impact will be too bad." Phoenix bowed to old nun Qingji and said, "Master, I'm willing to swear to Buddha that every word I said is true. Absolutely not a word of falsehood." Old nun Qingji nodded and said, "We won't meddle in the affairs of you young people. The male benefactor's eyes are clear. He's not an untrustworthy person. I hope you will reconsider." Phoenix bowed and said, "Thank you, master." Phoenix walked in front of Fong Yin and said, "This is a quiet place of Buddhism. Let's go out for a walk." "Okay," Fong Yin said. So, Phoenix walked in front, and Fong Yin followed closely behind. The two walked out of the door of the Lotus Temple and walked toward the forest in front. It was drizzling, and the mountain flowers were in full bloom. The young man and woman walked on the path in the forest. The path was steep and slippery. Fong Yin carefully guarded behind Phoenix, worried that she would accidentally fall. When Fong Yin was thinking about this, Phoenix suddenly stopped, pointed to the grass in front, and said, "Rabbit, I just saw a rabbit." When they were in Swallow Dock, Fong Yin and Phoenix would take a walk in the back mountain. Every time they saw animals like rabbits and pheasants, Phoenix would be so happy, as if she had discovered a new continent. Every time that happened, Fong Yin would pick up a stone from the ground and throw it over. Pa! After a crisp sound, the rabbit or pheasant would become food in their pot. When he was with Fong Yin never thought about his image. He was willing to show his truest side to her. He wouldn't pretend to be gentle, and he wouldn't pretend to be kind. He wouldn't deliberately show that he liked small animals. He really liked them. He really liked to eat them. While speaking, her feet slipped, and her body tilted and fell down the slope. Fong Yin was overjoyed, knowing that his chance to be a hero and save the beauty had come. He leaned forward and reached out to hug Phoenix's body. His body felt like it was being torn apart, and his movements became a little slow because of illness. He was a step too slow. Crack! Phoenix's body fell heavily onto the wet haystack. "Fong Yin," Phoenix shouted through gritted teeth, "you should let me be a monk." Chapter 602. I didn't do it on purpose. Fong Yin crouched down and tried to help Phoenix up in a flurry. Just as he lifted the Phoenix's body, the sole of his shoes slipped, and he fell to the ground because of the moss on the stone. At this time, Fong Yin had lost control of his body. Pa! His body was heavily pressed against Phoenix's chest, and the two of them heavily collided. If it weren't for the soft flesh below, the wound on his chest would have been torn open. Phoenix was pressed under Fong Yin's body. She didn't struggle, nor did she scream. It was as if she was lying on a big bed at home. She looked at Fong Yin with bright eyes and said, "Is this what you've always wanted to do?" "No," Fong Yin quickly denied. After a pause, he said, "I wasn't very sensible before, so I had some unhealthy thoughts." Phoenix sighed softly and said, "Yes, you weren't very sensible before, so you had these unhealthy thoughts. After you became sensible, you began to have unhealthy thoughts about others. Now you want to do this kind of thing to Yiro? Unfortunately, you can only think about it. You can't beat her anyway." Phoenix looked at Fong Yin and said, "Although I didn't refuse, are you going to keep lying on top of me and chat like this?" No, I'm going to get up after a rest," Fong Yin said. He got up from Phoenix's arms and pulled Phoenix up from the ground. Phoenix's back was soaked by the water stains on the grass. Her red hair was also wet and messy like a red flame. Phoenix's personality had always been arrogant and domineering. She was like a thorny rose, a woman who always existed like a flame. But after this incident, this flame was completely extinguished. She lost her original spirit and vitality, and her eyes began to become timid and evasive. That incident hurt her too deeply, and it would be difficult for her to recover in a short time. Phoenix looked around and pointed to a big stone in the forest and said, "Let's not go. Let's sit there for a while." "Okay." Fong Yin nodded. The stone was a little wet, so Fong Yin took off his coat and spread it on the stone. The two of them sat shoulder to shoulder. They had a lot of things to say, but when they sat down together, they didn't know how to start. It was a pus scar, a scar. Even if you wanted to open the wound and apply medicine on it, it would be the most painful when you applied the medicine. Fong Yin was afraid that he would say something wrong and once again hurt the sensitive nerves of the Phoenix. From the beginning to the end, they never talked about Bai Xiao. They never mentioned that name, because it was a curse that could not be undone, but one that he wanted to forget forever. "Fong Yin, you shouldn't have come." Just as Fong Yin was hesitating about what to say, Phoenix took the initiative to start the conversation. "I told you if I didn't come, I would regret it for the rest of my life, Fong Yin said with a smile. He pulled out a sugarcane grass from beside his feet and gently sucked the sweet juice from the grass root. This was something they often liked to do when they were young. Phoenix also pulled out a sugarcane grass and put it in her mouth. She said, "Before you came, I was hoping that you wouldn't come, because I was afraid that after you came, I wouldn't know what kind of expression to use to meet you. I also wouldn't know what to say to you. I don't want to say sorry, but I really did wrong you." "There's no need to say sorry. You didn't do anything wrong to me," Fong Yin said. "Even if you did, you've already paid it back. What could be more valuable than using your life to make up for it?" "I wasn't making up for it. At the time, I thought, just dying like that is fine," Phoenix said in a low voice, "because living is too tiring." "I understand," Fong Yin nodded. "The past is the past. We don't need to talk about it anymore. But you have to go back with me." "Go back?" Phoenix smiled and asked, "Go back to where?" "Home. Or anywhere else," Fong Yin stubbornly said, "but not here." "Fong Yin, don't force me. Don't force me, okay?" Phoenix looked at Fong Yin with a pleading expression and said, "I can't go back, and I don't want to go back. Where can I go? If I go back home, how will I face the way my family looks at me? If I go back to Swallow Dock, how will I face their comments about me? Go abroad." "Go abroad," Fong Yin said. At that time, Li Yin had wanted to send Shanshin abroad, but he intercepted her and brought her back. From Fong Yin's point of view, it might be a good choice for Phoenix to go abroad. After all, no matter how dissatisfied the family was with this woman, they probably wouldn't kill her to keep her quiet. "No matter where I go, they will be able to find me. I can't escape, and I don't have a way to escape. Even if they can't find me, can I live a safe and sound life and pretend that nothing has happened?" "Fong Yin, it's not that I can't get past others, but I can't get past myself. I have too many distracting thoughts in my mind, and the guilt in my heart is too deep. I will be tortured by these thoughts until I go crazy." Phoenix's eyes were bloodshot as she spoke, and she looked like she was about to go crazy. "I know that you don't feel good, but things have already developed to this stage, and we have to consider the best solution. I don't think that it's the best solution for you to become a nun." "I think so," Phoenix said. "No matter how dissatisfied they are with me, will they still make things difficult for a nun who has become a nun? Also, during the days I've been living on a mountain, I feel extremely peaceful. If I serve Buddha wholeheartedly and study Buddhist scriptures, the pain in my heart will be reduced by a lot. This is exactly what I need." Fong Yin, before I made this choice, I was at a loss and didn't know what to do. I didn't know what my next step should be, and I also didn't know what my future would be like. However, after I made my choice, my mind immediately calmed down. I know better than anyone that this is the state I want the most. Don't try to persuade me anymore, okay? Fong Yin was silent. He was not willing to accept such an outcome. However, he did not want to add more troubles to Phoenix. He hoped that she would be able to get through this. Phoenix reached out her hand to stroke Fong Yan's face. Using her fingers, she gently smoothed out Fong Yan's furrowed brows and said, "Fong Yin, I didn't want you to come, but I'm still very happy that you did. Women are always so contradictory. Just like what you said earlier, let's let go of everything that happened in the past. Let's act as if we've just met today. Fong Yin, promise me, okay?" "Okay." Fong Yin gritted his teeth and said, "I want to drink strong liquor," Phoenix said. "Okay." On the way down a mountain, I saw a farmer's family. I'll go find them and buy some meat. With Fong Yan's current physical condition, it was unrealistic to use stones to kill rabbits and pheasants. The best way would be to find a hunter in the mountains to buy these things. The people living in the mountains would certainly not be lacking in game. "I want to eat ambush from 10 sides, Phoenix said. "Okay, I'll borrow a pot from them and make ambush from 10 sides for you." Fong Yin glanced at Phoenix, then got up and ran back the way he came. Phoenix stared at Fong Yan's back in a daze. She chewed the sugarcane grass in her mouth and swallowed it into her stomach. It was as if she was Fong Yin. Fong Yin quickly returned. He carried a sack on his shoulder and a large pot in his hand. Fong Yin placed the pot on the ground, then took out the contents of the sack one by one. Every time he took out something, he would introduce it to Phoenix as if it was a treasure, just like the first time he took her to the mountains to hunt rabbits for ambush from 10 sides. "This is dried rabbit, this is half a pheasant. They only have this half in their house. This is the dough they sent. They originally used to make pot stickers at night, but I borrowed it. This is oil and salt. This is dried chili from their wall. Fong Yin took out a white plastic bucket from his pocket and said, "You didn't expect this, did you? They also have loose spirits. I just took a sip. It's not as clear as Swallow Doc Xiao Dao, but it's still very good. That big brother said there's at least 3 caddies of it. I haven't touched white wine for a long time. Let's have a good drink later." Fong Yin copied Swallow Doc style and used a few large stones to build a simple stove on a piece of dry land. After washing the large pot in the stream, he put it on the stove. Then he cleaned a rabbit and pheasant, cut them into large pieces with a knife, and put them into the pot one by one. He grabbed a handful of wild mushrooms and wild beans and threw them in together, then added a certain amount of stream water. Because it had just rained, the most difficult step was to find hay and firewood. Of course, this was not a problem for Fong Yin. He dug out a few rabbit holes, inside of which were soft and dry weeds. Then he pulled out some old branches from under some rocks that had not fallen in the rain, and then used a lighter from a farmer's house to light the hay. The fire burned fiercely. Phoenix happily helped to light the fire, and from time to time, she would laugh like a silver bell when she heard Fong Yin's words. Her laughter traveled far, the most beautiful sound of nature in this forest. This scene was so familiar, it was exactly the same as when they were ambushed from 10 sides in Swallow Dock. When the soup was boiling, the meat was cooked. Fong Yin poured the oil, salt, and seasonings he had prepared into the pot. Then, he threw in a handful of chili and poured in some spirits. The large pot began to emit a fragrant aroma, and even the steam that came out from it could not help but greedily suck it into their lungs. Fong Yin opened the barrel, gulped down a mouthful, and then handed the barrel to Phoenix in front of him. Phoenix took the barrel, raised her head, and gulped down a big mouthful. "Eat meat." Fong Yin handed the chopsticks he had cut from a tree branch to Phoenix. Phoenix took the chopsticks, picked up a rabbit leg from the pot, and began to eat. The rabbit leg that had just come out of the pot was too hot, and Phoenix ate it too quickly, so she would occasionally spit out her tongue to blow out a breath of cold air. However, she still greedily ate without a care. She chewed the rabbit meat in a sorry state, and big drops of tears flowed down her cheeks. From now on, there would be no more Phoenix. Chapter 603. Fong Yin picked up a rabbit leg from the pot and took a bite, only to find that the meat was too salty. Originally, when the hunters air-dried the rabbit, they would rub salt on it, but Fong Yin just threw a handful of salt in. As a result, this pot of ambush from 10 sides became very heavy. Fong Yin glanced at Phoenix and saw that she was eating heartily as if she didn't notice it at all. "It's too salty," Fong Yin said. The meat was salty, and so were the tears. So, for the time being, Phoenix couldn't tell whether it was the meat or the tears that dripped on the meat that were salty. Hearing Fong Yin's words, Phoenix discreetly wiped her eyes with her sleeve and said, "Drink some wine to calm it down." As she spoke, she handed the wine barrel in her hand to Fong Yin. Without a cup, they could only drink with their mouths aimed at the opening of the barrel. In Swallow Dock, they often did this, and they still did it now. Of course, in the eyes of outsiders, this was no different from an indirect kiss. Fong Yin took the barrel and took a big gulp. He said with a smile, "I've eaten all kinds of dishes in the world, but the one I want to eat the most is still this ambush from 10 sides that we created." Phoenix nodded and said, "Yes. I'm just afraid that I won't be able to eat it in the future." "How can that be?" Fong Yin said with a smile. "Whenever you want to eat it, I'll make it for you. What if you and Yiruru got married?" "Then I'll make it for you secretly," Fong Yin said. Phoenix squinted her eyes and laughed. If other men were to answer this question, they would definitely brag about how high their status in the family is, and what they say is the law, and their wives have no say at all. Only married men would dare to do that. Anyway, their wives have already been tricked into coming home. Fong Yin said with a smile. If an unmarried man dared to say that, which woman would be willing to marry him? You have to look further. Phoenix looked at Fong Yin with gentle eyes and said, "You're always different from what others think." "Not really. Apart from being a little more handsome than Li Xiaotian and the others, I'm not much different from them in other aspects. Drinking wine, eating meat from bowls, and bragging loudly. It's the nature of men, you know. Are they all right? Phoenix asked. Not bad, Fang Yin said with a smile. They're all fine. During Zhu Zaidan's special training in the North Sea, it was said that her family's 10,000 elephants fist, which had been stagnant for a long time, was showing signs of making another breakthrough. If he broke through again, he would become the second person in the younger generation of the Zhu clan to enter the 10,000 phenomenon formation. Li Xiaotian was doing business with his brother in Beijing. With the help of the Maple Leaf Society, his business was booming. Ruan Qin's work is the hardest. He follows Yi Daoling as a confidential secretary. Although this kid keeps complaining, his personality has become much more mature and steady. When friends met, it was natural for them to talk about each other's friends. Zhu Zaidan, Li Xiaotian, Ruan Qin, and the others were all good friends of Fang Yin and Phoenix. They shared many common memories. Back then, Fang Yin had attacked the Phoenix with the help or cover of these companions. The offensive was fierce, but in the end, the Lone Ranger by Xiao took down the Phoenix. This made everyone feel a little sad and disappointed. Later, everyone went to the back of the mountain to drink a dozen liters of shadaozi, ate a pot of tin noodles ambush, and cried for a while. After watching Fang Yin brag for a few hours, the pain in their hearts lessened a little. I haven't seen them for a long time. I really miss them, Phoenix said with a smile. If they know that I've become a nun, will they be shocked? And Xiao Xiao, Fang Yin shouted angrily. He didn't like to hear Phoenix talk about this topic. They will definitely be shocked, especially Ruan Qin. His personality is the softest, and he likes to cry. If he knows that I've become a nun, maybe he will cry. No one wants to hear this news. Fang Yin, just now at Lotus Temple, you said that you owe me a face-to-face confession, and I owe you a face-to-face rejection. Now, can you confess to me one more time? Phoenix looked at Fang Yin expectantly, her right hand tightly gripping the rabbit's leg, afraid that Fang Yin would refuse her rude request. Fang Yin looked at Phoenix seriously and said, I like you for many years. For a very, very long time, I felt that I couldn't live without you. I liked you until I saw you in Bai Xiu's arms, admiring the snow in the village. After seeing that scene, I decided that I didn't like you anymore. But when I thought about it, I liked you for many years. Phoenix's eyes filled with tears again. She sobbed and said, I really don't want to refuse. Then, she shook her head desperately, shaking off the ripples in her heart. She said, but I still want to refuse. Fang Yin, I'm sorry. I can't accept you. I couldn't accept you in the past, and I definitely won't accept you in the future. Fang Yin smiled bitterly and said, You're really cruel. You rejected me twice in one go. I won't do such things in the future. Phoenix was once again amused by Fang Yin. She wiped away the tears in her eyes and said, I won't let you do such things in the future either. She reached out and snatched the wine barrel from Fang Yin's hand. Then, she took a big gulp and said, When did you start to dislike me? Until you met Yiro? Fang Yin shook his head and said, You should know that at that time, I only had eyes for you. I felt that even 100 Yiros couldn't compare to you. I even did something stupid like writing a love letter to Yiro under Bai Xiu's name. I felt that if I did that, you would be mine alone. And now, Yiro has replaced you. Fang Yin didn't hide anything and said with incomparable sincerity, he wouldn't hurt another woman for the sake of comforting her. That would be unfair to Yiro. Is she good to you? Yes, I know she's good to you, Phoenix said with red eyes. To be honest, I don't care about all the women in Swallow Dock, but I have a natural hostility towards Yiro. Although you didn't like her at that time and always spoke ill of her in front of me. But the more you said, the more worried I was. I was worried that you would fall in love with her. I was worried that she would replace my place in your heart. So, every time I saw you walking with her, I was especially angry. Every time it happened, I would pretend to meet you by chance, deliberately showing how intimate we were, saying something deliberately to make her angry. I know it's stupid and childish of me to do that, but I can't help but do it. Fang Yin, I'm not a smart woman. I'm also not a determined woman. There are many things that I can't see as clearly as you row. I'm trapped in a cocoon of my own making. I'm tightly entangled by one net after another. I can't move my hands and feet, and even breathing is extremely difficult. I used to often think about this problem. If only I could do it, how good it would be. I used to like to read romance novels, in which the young ladies of rich and powerful families resolutely elope with their loved ones. At that time, I thought how good it would be if I could do it, but I just couldn't make such a decision. Day after day, year after year, we wait for it. When I needed to make a choice between the two of us, when the conflict was about to erupt, I did such a stupid thing. Fang Yin, you don't know how ashamed I was the second you tore off my veil. I was so ashamed that I couldn't show my face. At that time, I really wanted to stab myself with a sword. All my choices were wrong. All my steps were on the wrong beat. I was the most stupid and cowardly woman in the world. And Xiao, Fang Yin, do you remember the question I asked you on Mount E's sword? Yes. Fang Yin nodded. You asked me if I knew why you're called Phoenix. The name Phoenix was given by me. The Phoenix said, when I was a child, I read a novel about Phoenix. The book said that Phoenix is the messenger of happiness in the world. Every 500 years, it has to carry all the unhappiness and hatred accumulated in the world and throw itself into the raging fire to burn itself. It uses the end of its life and beauty to exchange for peace and happiness in the world. Similarly, after experiencing great pain and suffering, it can be reborn with a better body. Fang Yin, I can't wait for 500 years. I can't even hold on for 5 days. I want to carry the unhappiness and hatred on my body and throw myself into the raging fire to burn myself. I want happiness. I want to be reborn. Phoenix reached out and held Fang Yan's hand. This time, let me listen to the choice of my heart. Let me make my own decision. I know that I was wrong for the first half of my life. Let me make my own choice this time. The Phoenix stood up and walked in front of Fang Yan. He stretched out his hand and gently stroked Fang Yan's hair. He said, I will burn incense and pray for you in front of Buddha every day. I will bless you with a lifetime of happiness. Phoenix left. The firewood was still burning, and the meat soup was fragrant. The 3 liters of liquor had been emptied. Fang Yin held the empty barrel. After pouring out the last drop of liquor, he threw the barrel far away. Clang! The plastic barrel hit a rock and bounced back. It fell into the stream and flowed downstream. It was unknown where it would end up. In the beginning, I only believed. What was great was emotion. In the end, I was powerless to see. What was strong was fate. Love is like a song. Hate is like a song. Goodbye and Xiao. Goodbye, my first love. Chapter 604. Below was the yellow springs. Above was the extreme cold. The extreme cold was the land of extreme cold that people talked about. Many people thought that the land of extreme cold was the same as the yellow springs of hell, that it was a myth. But what they did not know was that the yellow springs of hell did not exist. After all, no one had been there, and even if they did, there was no way to report back. But the land of extreme cold really did exist. It was just that it was difficult for ordinary people to find and reach safely. The average temperature here was 50 degrees Celsius, and the lowest temperature was 70 degrees Celsius. Once the temperature reached a certain degree, it was not suitable for human habitation. Therefore, on this isolated and unknown land of glaciers, you cannot see any other humans. Even some cold-resistant animals and plants were rare. Snow. The entire world was covered in snow. A world covered in ice and snow should be bright or even dazzling. But the color of the sky here was dusky. It was covered in fog all year round, as if it was covered by a huge gray curtain. Because the weather was too cold, even the fog in the air was frozen, and there was a slight feeling of being cut apart. Crack, crack, crack. A tall man covered in animal fur walked step by step in the snow. Every step he took would leave a deep hole in the world of ice and snow. Behind him, there was a long row of footprints. Those footprints looked lonely, just like their owner. His eyebrows were covered in ice. and his eyes were as cold as ice. His hair was loose and knotted, and he looked like a wild man in the wilderness. No, he looked even worse than a wild man in the wilderness, because he could not remember how long it had been since he last combed his hair. His full beard protected his mouth and nose, and it did have the effect of resisting the cold. The man held a long spear over 10 feet long in his hand. The tip of the spear dragged in the snow, making a rustling sound, as if the owner of the spear did not have the strength to carry it. Either they return home, or the Snow Empire will be buried. This was what the old drunkard Immerse had said when he left Swallow Dock. It was not some heroic speech, nor was it to cut off a path of retreat to encourage himself. He did not need this. Too many things had happened in Swallow Dock, and the Fong family was in danger. Fong Yixing, whom he regarded as his elder brother, had died tragically. Fong Yin was deeply affected and was unable to recover, so he decided to observe mourning for 3 years. Immerse knew that Fong Yin made such a decision out of guilt. He blamed himself for being a step too slow and not being able to bring his father back from the ambush in time. How could he not feel guilty? The enemy had already come to their doorstep. As the former Huaxia Azure Dragon, as a member of the Fong family, there was nothing he could do. When he arrived with his silver spear, all he saw was the scene of Fong Yin holding Fong Yixing's corpse and wailing. How could he not feel sad? He could have been faster. He could have saved them from this disaster in the past. However, because the meridians in his body were broken, it was difficult for him to use his energy. Having a mountain of treasures, but being unable to use them. How cruel was this feeling for a former king-level figure? Therefore, Immerse prepared a generous gift and went to see the medicine addict, asking him to check his pulse. The medicine addict's prescription was to use the rare blood of the ice dragon to heal Immerse's broken meridians. Although the ice dragon liked the cold, its body belonged to the fire attribute. Its blood was like fire. Drinking it could make one's blood boil and cure all kinds of diseases. However, even the medicine addict only deduced from the records in the medical books that there was a possibility of finding the ice dragon in the land of extreme cold. As for what the ice dragon looked like and what its habits were, he had no idea. Immerse still made his choice. He chose to believe in the medicine addict and agreed to his harsh conditions. He came to this land of extreme cold alone with his spear. Instead of living like a useless person, it was better to die far away from the crowd. This was Immerse's persistence, his last pride. Immerse had been here for more than 3 years, maybe even longer. Anyway, he could not remember clearly. There was no day or night here. Whether it was day or night, the sky was always gray. When it snowed, it would be slightly brighter. Fortunately, it snowed frequently here. Immerse called the time when it snowed as his day. It was also his time to move around. Because it had just snowed heavily, the snowy ground was a vast expanse of whiteness. Nothing could be seen. Not even the tiny footprints of animals could be seen. Hiss, hiss, hiss. There was the faint sound of something hissing, but it was almost inaudible in the howling wind. However, it could not escape Immerse's ears. Immerse stopped in his tracks and stood still on the spot. Just then, a snow-white object broke through the thick layer of snow and sprang up from the ground. It lunged towards Immerse's exposed palm and bit at it. A flame rat, a rat that had mutated in an extremely harsh environment. Their black fur had turned red, and their black skin had turned white. They looked very cute. However, perhaps because of the lack of resources in the land of extreme cold, they were greedy and bloodthirsty. They would not let go of any prey that could become their food. They did not like to live in the ice and snow, but in the volcanic areas of the land of extreme cold. It was a volcano also covered in ice and snow, but at least the rocks and soil there could give them some warmth. For a long time, Immerse survived by eating this kind of flame rat. Later, Immerse discovered a kind of snow snake. After it was frozen, it was cut with a knife, and its meat was even more delicious and tender. Humans needed something to eat. Even if you were Huaxia, the Azure Dragon was no exception. Immerse was no stranger to this kind of rat. He had countless experiences in dealing with this kind of flame rat. Therefore, when the flame rat jumped up and bit his arm, he suddenly let go of the gun in his hand. Then, with a flip of his wrist, the flame rat that weighed 1 kilogram was caught in the palm of his hand. He gently pressed down with his thumb, and the flame rat's neck gave off a crisp sound before it was broken by him. With practiced movements, Immerse tossed the mouse into the mixed grain sack that he always carried with him. Then, with a flick of his foot, the handle of the spear that was about to fall into the snow flew up into the air and was caught by Immerse in his hand. Just like before, he dragged the spear forward again. Thirsty to drink snow water, hungry to eat snow snakes and flame rats, trapped in an ice cave, he lived on with determination. Day after day, year after year. This was the state of his daily life. He did not know what the ice dragon looked like, and he did not know where the ice dragon was. Therefore, the only thing he could do was to search. Like a lonely ghost in this land of extreme coldness, he walked through all the places that he had not been to before. Rumble, a thunderous sound came from afar. Immerse's expression froze. He stood still and looked into the distance. In the few years that he had been here, it often snowed in this land of extreme coldness, but there had never been thunder or lightning, because everyone knew that this kind of sound could bring about a terrible consequence, a chain of avalanches. Once the avalanches spread out for thousands of miles, it would be a disaster. Even Immerse, the Azure Dragon, did not have the confidence that he could run thousands of miles in such a harsh environment. The key was that his speed was faster than the speed of the glacier. That was a power that even the gods could not contend against. Immerse had to be careful. He waited for a while, but the rumbling sound did not come again. This gave Immerse a little peace of mind. A gust of wind blew over. There was a strange, yet familiar scent in the wind. Immerse frowned. Holding his spear, he ran back in the direction he came from. He smelled danger. Rumble, a sound that was more deafening and longer than before, rang out again. It was as if a sleeping beast had just awakened and was declaring its sovereignty over this territory to the outside world. Bang! A plume of black smoke rose into the sky, and then a fiery red rainbow spread across the sky. No, that was not a real rainbow. It was a rock or that erupted from volcano. The colorful boiling substances dispersed in the sky, incinerating all the snow and mist that came into contact with them. They fell from the sky with billowing white smoke and then collapsed in all directions. They were demons of the human world, and nothing could stop them. The place where they landed became a deep pit. The pit grew larger and larger and expanded to the surrounding area. Crack, crack. The sound of ice breaking came from the high mountains, and then large chunks of ice and snow rolled down toward the flat tundra. With the force of Mount Tai, they were about to destroy all living things that stood in their way. Immerse smelled the sulfur in the air in advance, so he ran in time, and at the most crucial moment. Based on the area he was in, if he did not turn and run in advance, he might have been swallowed by the volcanic rocks that fell from the sky. Immerse ran very boldly, running with all his might. He ran like a wild beast with disheveled hair. Of course, there would be beasts who would not accept that he was a wild beast. This was because while he was madly running, a snow-white dog-like object actually surpassed his speed. It opened its mouth and stuck out its tongue as it ran in front of him with a whizzing sound. An ice dragon? Immerse's eyes brightened, and the pores on his body became transparent. Although he had never seen a real ice dragon, not even a picture of one, he knew in his heart that this was the ice dragon he had been searching for. All his efforts seemed to have paid off. Even at this critical moment of life and death, Immerse was still grateful to the heavens. Chapter 605. The greatest torment in life was despair. He searched day and night. He walked through every corner of this land of extreme coldness. Every step he took could circle around Yanjing City countless times. However, he had never seen an ice dragon before. In fact, he didn't even find any clues related to it. At this time, Mo Chingdi's heart began to waver. Was there an ice dragon? If not, what was the point of persisting? But if he didn't persist, what would he do? Would he go back with this broken body and witness the decline of the Fong family? Or would he die with them? The Fong family needed a man to stand up. If it wasn't Fong Yin, it would be him. If Fong Yin wasn't ready, then he would have to stand up for him for a while or a lifetime. If he wasn't ready, all the burden would be on Fong Yin alone. Most importantly, some of the hatred started because of him. If he couldn't stand up again, what would he do if they saw Fong Yin as a target for revenge? According to the extraordinary medical record, it was shaped like a dragon and had horns like ice. In other words, it should be a little transparent dragon. Why did the ice dragon he saw now look like a dog? A small transparent dog with a sharp horn and a tongue sticking out as it ran for its life? Just as Mo Chingdi was looking at the little transparent dog with excitement, the little transparent dog even turned around to look at Mo Chingdi. There was a hint of mockery in its eyes. Mo Chingdi's expression froze. What was it trying to say? Was it trying to tell him that he couldn't run as fast as a dog? Kacha! Kacha! The sound of the avalanche was endless. The entire glacial land was rumbling and shaking. The mountains were collapsing and the earth was cracking. It was as if the world was about to collapse. Mo Chingdi ran even faster. The ice dragon that had been leading the way also sped up. Clang, clang, clang. This was the sound of Mo Chingdi's big feet stomping on the snow. Every step he took seemed like he was going to make a big hole in the ground. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The little transparent dog landed without a sound. Its body seemed to be one with the snow. Every time she leapt, she would draw a beautiful arc in the air before landing nimbly a few meters away. It didn't look like it was running. It looked like the wind was pushing it forward. Its speed far surpassed Mo Chingdi, so it was no wonder that it looked down on Mo Chingdi. A man and a beast. The beast was leading the way while the man followed closely behind. Mo Chingdi suddenly realized that he and this ice dragon had become a pair of brothers in hardship. If the lava rolled over and the glacier covered them, both of them would face the same fate. They would either be incinerated by the rock ores or buried by the glacier and turn into an iceberg fossil. The cracking sound behind them became more and more rapid, and the ground beneath their feet also began to split apart, forming countless cracks of varying sizes. Some of the cracks were unfathomably deep, and if one were to fall into them, they might never be able to climb out again. What was worse was that the rumbling sounds of volcanic eruptions were incessant. One hot rock or after another was sent into the sky by them, and then turned into a colorful waterfall that poured down on the glacier. It seemed like this was just the beginning, and no one knew when it would end. The volcano was enraged. It was as if it wanted to issue an ultimate challenge to the glacier that had covered it for thousands of years. Either the flames would melt the glacier and turn it into its captive, or the glacier would extinguish the flames and turn it into a defeated opponent. However, whether it was the flames or the glacier, Mo Chingdi and the transparent dog running in front of him could not contend against them. Sometimes, the saying man can conquer nature seemed like a joke. The glacier beneath their feet was cracking faster and faster, and the cracking sound were incessant. Mo Chingdi could already feel the rolling heat waves behind him. It was the hot magma that was sent here by the cold wind ahead of time. Mo Chingdi knew that he had to make change. They couldn't outrun the speed of the glacier's collapse, and they couldn't outrun the lava. They were humans, and their physical strength would soon be exhausted. Especially with Mo Chingdi's current physical condition, he couldn't hold on for too long. He had to make a change. But how? Behind him was the collapsing glacier and boiling lava, and in front of him was an endless expanse of ice and snow. Where could he run to? Just as Mo Chingdi was making a difficult decision in his heart, the transparent dog running in front of him suddenly changed direction. Left. Mo Chingdi hesitated for a moment, then followed closely behind it and turned left. Although Mo Chingdi had lived in this extremely cold place for many years, he was not familiar with the terrain at all. There was no way to familiarize himself with it. There was no map to check, No navigation to use. There were only mountains and hills, and the whole world was covered in snow. No one knew what was hidden under the snow. Mo-Ching-Di didn't know the way, but he knew that Ice Dragon must be familiar with the terrain. Ice Dragon was a long-lived species. With its current size and running speed, Mo-Ching-Di suspected that it had lived for at least a few decades or even 100 years. It could be considered a native of this glacier, and Mo-Ching-Di was just an intruder. Perhaps Ice Dragon could help Mo-Ching-Di through this life and death situation. As Mo-Ching-Di thought of this, he spread out his body and followed closely behind Ice Dragon. In order not to slow down, he even threw away the spear in his hand. Mo-Ching-Di made an inviting gesture, indicating that Ice Dragon should enjoy the food he gave him. Ice Dragon glanced at the flame rat thrown by Mo-Ching-Di, then turned around and walked into the depths of the cave. Not long after, it once again ran in front of Mo-Ching-Di. Slap! It threw the thing in its mouth in front of Mo-Ching-Di. Mo-Ching-Di looked at it and was instantly shocked. 9-petal snow lotus. This kind of snow lotus has 9 petals, and it takes 3 years for each petal to grow. Moreover, this kind of 9-petal snow lotus can only grow in extremely cold places. It can't exist in other places. As Mo-Ching-Di stared at the snow lotus with his mouth wide open, Ice Dragon once again turned around and ran into the cave. Slap! Another object was thrown in front of Mo-Ching-Di. Baby ginseng. This kind of mountain ginseng was shaped like a child, hence its name. It was said that it could only be found under the icebergs in extremely cold places. But the icebergs were covered with layers of ice. How would you know where to find ginseng? Slap! Some kind of fiery red fruit of unknown origin. Slap! A red carp weighing dozens of kilograms. There was an ice river under the glacier, and the red carp was a special product of the ice river. Its meat was delicious, and it was highly nutritious. In the second year of Mo-Ching-Di's arrival in the extremely cold places, he accidentally caught a red carp weighing 1 kilogram in the ice river. Mo-Ching-Di only had a few meals with that fish, and it was the best food he had ever eaten since he arrived in this extremely cold place. Most of the time, he ate flame rats, and only when he wanted to improve his life could he eat snow snakes. Slap, slap, slap. Ice Dragon's speed was very fast, so in front of Mo-Ching-Di, there was a small mountain of all kinds of rare and delicious food. Finally, Ice Dragon stopped running back into the cave, but looked at Mo-Ching-Di provocatively, and used its nose to point at the food it threw in front of Mo-Ching-Di, meaning, "Eat, I have plenty of food. You flaunt your wealth like this." Mo-Ching-Di's voice was dry, and the flame rat thrown in front of Ice Dragon looked even more pitiful. It's not too safe, is it? Chapter 606. Fang Yin had shown an amazing capacity for alcohol since he was very young. But because of his mediocre behavior, he was Mo-Ching-Di's second favorite drinking buddy. In first place was Wen-Ro. Once, Mo-Ching-Di had just finished a new jar of wine and invited Fang Yin over to taste it. When Mo-Ching-Di placed his hand-brewed Shadaozi in front of Fang Yin only glanced at it disdainfully, then ran back to his room and brought back a box of Maotai. The box of wine was as old as the Maotai factory was built. It was said that Phoenix stole it from her grandfather. Mo-Ching-Di was so angry that he drank the entire box of wine. When Mo-Ching-Di first saw this transparent dog, he felt a little familiar, but he couldn't figure out what was so familiar about it. He thought it was a subconscious feeling that this was the ice dragon that he had to find in his destiny. He saw the disdainful look in the transparent dog's eyes when it saw the flame rat, and the triumphant look when it crazily moved its treasures in front of him for him to enjoy. It was exactly the same face as Fang Yin when he was young. From their expressions to their actions, this transparent dog was practically a miniature version of Fang Yin, and they were equally shameless. In real life, people like to call people who like to show off their wealth a dog. Now Immerse saw with his own eyes a transparent dog running in front of him to show off its wealth. Moreover, even someone as knowledgeable as Immerse could not help but admit that this dog was truly rich. It was practically overflowing with wealth. Seeing that Immerse was standing there motionless, Ice Dragon thought that he was too embarrassed to enjoy, so it came over with a red fruit in its mouth and took the initiative to walk toward Immerse. Immerse's heart trembled, and he looked at Ice Dragon with a face full of surprise. It trusted me. It believed that I would not hurt it, so it unscrupulously took the initiative to approach me. This feeling of being inexplicably trusted is really good, so good that people can't bear to break it. Immerse held out his hand, and Ice Dragon put the fruit in its mouth and Immerse's palm, then raised its head and looked at him expectantly. Immerse grabbed a handful of snow and wiped the fruit, washing away Ice Dragon's saliva, and then took a bite of the red fruit. Crunch, crisp, sweet, and juicy. This was the tastiest fruit Immerse had ever eaten. Immerse grinned and shoved the remaining half of the fruit into his mouth. The Ice Dragon was also very happy. It jumped up and down in front of Immerse with an adorable expression that said, "I told you it was delicious. Now, you know I didn't lie. I can't kill you." Immerse looked at Ice Dragon and said. He looked at the little transparent dog, as if he was looking at a young Fong Yen. How could he bear to kill it? You're the only pillar of the Jiang family now, so you must not fall. Also, I know a little about the Longta group. You don't have to worry about it. You're still young, and you'll soon be able to build a bigger family business for yourself. I believe that you have the ability, and I also believe that you have the foresight. General Hang said that he believed that he had foresight. But what foresight? Jiang Zhulu understood the meaning behind General Hang's words and said sincerely, "Master, please take care of me in the future." General Hang was very satisfied with Jiang Zhulu's attitude and said, "Zhulu, you are too kind. I am just an idle person in the family, so I don't usually care about these things. However, you are Shangxin's husband and my brother-in-law. We are a family. Your matters are my matters." "Thank you, Master." Jiang Zhulu's heart was finally at ease. The general had left, and the general had replaced him. Finally, he had found another thick thigh to cling to. However, what exactly happened to Jiang Junling? "Master, did the military order come back to Yin Jing? He didn't even inform us when he left." Jiang Zhulu had to ask this question. No matter what, he used to be a close friend of Jiang Junling's. If you turn a blind eye to your previous master just because you clung to General Hang's thigh, how would General Hang view you? Moreover, he asked this question after he had General Hang's backing. This showed that he valued his relationship with General Hang more. As for asking about Jiang Junling's whereabouts, that was merely out of courtesy. With General Hang's intelligence, he would definitely understand the deeper meaning behind his actions. General Hang's voice was slightly heavy as he said, "The military order disappeared in Huacheng a few days ago, and everyone in the family is looking for him. But he sent someone back to report that he is fine and just wants to leave for a while to relax. Then, I'll have to trouble you in the future." Jiang Zhulu congratulated him vaguely. With Jiang Junling's disappearance, the general family had to push out a new person, and that person was naturally General Hang. Jiang Zhulu had been suppressed for so many years by the words, "One should have a son like Jiang Junling." As the eldest brother, he must be feeling very indignant, right? "Let's work hard together." General Hang smiled and said, "A fence needs 3 stakes, and a good man needs 3 helpers. I am not as talented as the military order, so I need the support of my friends. Zhulu will follow your lead from now on, young master." Jiang Zhulu promised. "You're treating me like an outsider." General Hang's smile became even more carefree. "By the way, if there's a military order to contact you, please let me know in time. No one in the family knows where he is, and he disappeared without even handing over the business he was in charge of. The family is in a mess." The old man is very displeased with his behavior of disappearing without notifying him. "I know what to do," Jiang Zhulu said. After obtaining his loyalty, General Hang gave him some very important information. Jiang Junling had indeed disappeared. Not only did he not notify him, he didn't even say hello to anyone in the general family. Moreover, he didn't have the time to hand over all the work he was in charge of, and because of his departure, there was a gap in management. Most importantly, the old man was very displeased with his behavior of disappearing without notifying him. Does this mean that General Hang has already replaced Jiang Junling's position in the general family? Jiang Zhulu secretly rejoiced that he had made the call in time. If he waited for the general's command to come knocking on his door, then he would lose a precious initiative. Where did the general's order go? Jiang Zhulu couldn't help but think of Fang Yan. Could it be that Jiang Junling had been gotten rid of by Fang Yan? Jiang Zhulio's worries rippled in his heart as he thought of that delicate-looking young man. He was really a scourge. Ring! The phone on the table rang. Jiang Zhulu saw that it was a call from the secretary outside and asked, "Lily, what's the matter?" "Chairman Jiang, Miss Jiang wants to see you," the secretary's voice sounded. "Miss Jiang?" Jiang Zhulu thought for a while and asked, "Jiang Shangxin?" "It's me." This time, it wasn't Lily's voice, but Jiang Shangxin's. Jiang Zhulio's face turned gloomy. The one who came did not come with good intentions. Jiang Shangxin had been taken away by Fang Yan at the airport, but this time she took the initiative to look for him. Jiang Zhulu would not believe that she didn't have any ulterior motives. Jiang Shangxin, you really know how to make people sad. Chapter 607. Jiang Shangxin pushed the door open and entered, just like how she had visited Jiang Zhulu countless times in the past. The difference was that Jiang Zhulu did not stand up to welcome her this time. Jiang Zhulu sat behind his desk and stared coldly at Jiang Shangxin, who was walking in gracefully. With a face full of mockery, he said, "Isn't this my wife? It's been a long time. It's strange that it's so difficult to see my wife." Jiang Shangxin did not respond to Jiang Zhulio's question. She walked straight to the sofa area in the office and sat down. Then, she pressed the service bell. The secretary, Lily, pushed the door open and asked, "Chairman Jiang, what can I do for you?" Jiang Zhulu waved his hands and gestured for Lily to leave. Jiang Shangxin said, "Bring me a cup of coffee. You know my taste." "Okay, Miss Jiang." The secretary knew that there was a conflict between the chairman and Jiang Shangxin, but she did not know the extent of it. In her opinion, wasn't it normal for a married couple to quarrel? As for the chairman's wife's request, she naturally had to do her best to satisfy it. The secretary left and quickly brought in a cup of freshly ground Americano black coffee with a spoonful of milk and half a spoonful of sugar. This was Jiang Shangxin's usual taste. Jiang Shangxin took the black coffee and took a deep breath. She smiled and said, "Thank you, Lily. You know me better than a man. Miss Jiang, you are too polite." Lily could tell that there was something wrong with his tone. She looked at Jiang Zhulu with an aggrieved expression and left hurriedly. Jiang Zhulu leaned against the back of the chair and looked at Jiang Shangxin, who was sitting a distance away, enjoying the coffee. He said, "You left in a hurry the last time, but you came back openly this time. I was still waiting for the news that you were safe after landing in Paris. In the end, you ran away with another man. I don't know where you went. What do you want to say this time? Lay all your cards on the table? Prepare to divorce me?" Jiang Shangxin took a small sip of her coffee and said, "I ran away in a hurry the other time because there was a mad dog chasing after me. It was still bearable to let him bite my finger, but if I were to get bitten on my throat, I might not be able to keep my life. How can I not run away?" Jiang Zhulu laughed heartily. He stood up and walked toward the resting area where Jiang Shangxin was. He looked into her eyes and said, "A mad dog is still a mad dog. Aren't you afraid of getting your throat bitten off by a mad dog? That would depend on whether a mad dog is willing to eat it." "Why?" Jiang Zhulu stared at Jiang Shangxin's slender neck and said, "Did you smear poison on your neck? If there really is one, Mad Dog wouldn't mind trying." As Jiang Zhulu spoke, he had already sat down beside Jiang Shangxin and reached out to stroke her neck. Jiang Shangxin avoided his lecherous hands and said, "It's because I have the dog beating stick. If a dog dares to bare its teeth at me, I'll hit it with a stick." Jiang Zhulu stopped what he was doing and stared at Jiang Shangxin with a burning gaze. Is that so? I'm really curious. What kind of dog beating stick is it? Take a guess. Jiang Zhulu sat up straight and crossed his arms in a businesslike manner. He said, Jiang Shangxin, since you're here today, you're naturally not here to reminisce about old times with me. Tell me, what is your purpose for coming here? Are you scared? Are you anxious? Jiang Shangxin looked at Jiang Zhulu and said, Actually, it's nothing much. I'm just here to humiliate you. Jiang Zhulu was stunned for a moment. Then he laughed heartily. He looked at Jiang Shangxin and said, This way of speaking is very familiar. It sounds like someone. Let me think, who is it? Are you talking about Fang Yan? Yes, Fang Yan. Jiang Zhulu smiled and nodded, saying, His way of speaking is always so simple and direct. He doesn't hide anything and goes straight to the point, ruthlessly stabbing a person in the chest. No matter how much time has passed, every time I think about it, my heart will ache faintly. I didn't expect that after not seeing you for only a few days, you would learn some of his essence. That proves that I'm quite talented. Jiang Shangxin smiled and said, Jiang Zhulu, you're so smart. You must have known that this day would come, right? What kind of day? Jiang Zhulu wasn't afraid of Jiang Shangxin's threat and said, I work in the president's office on the top floor of a building worth tens of billions of dollars. I can see the entire city from the floor-to-ceiling windows, and there's a beautiful secretary at the door who satisfies all my requests. As long as I need her, she's willing to take off her clothes and kneel in front of me. I can decide the fate of tens of thousands of people with a single sentence, and I can make many people lose sleep at night with a glance. Jiang Shangxin, I knew that this day would come. I just didn't expect it to come so soon. So, you didn't hesitate to kill your own father with your own hands? Jiang Shangxin asked coldly. She didn't treat this man as a human, but as a biting dog, an extremely aggressive beast. Jiang Zhulu's expression was ferocious, and he said, I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint you. I really didn't kill my father. It was Fang Yan, your new boyfriend. Don't be fooled by his gentle and refined appearance. He's ruthless and vicious. As your husband, I still have to warn you. Be careful that he doesn't eat you up and kick you away, swallowing you up to the point where not even your bones are left. Thank you for your kindness. Jiang Shangxin said, You really are a dutiful ex-husband. Ex-husband, Jiang Zhulu laughed and said, I really didn't intend to divorce you. Although you have a new man, I love you so much. How can I bear to let you leave me? Shangxin, do you know? You're my most precious asset now. No matter what happens, I want to be with you. Jiang Shangxin stirred the coffee in the cup with a steel spoon. After hearing what Jiang Zhulu said, she giggled and tucked her long hair behind her ear. She said, Jiang Zhulu, did you think that I came here today to lay all my cards on the table and divorce you? Did I want to take away half of your family's wealth? This has nothing to do with money. I just can't imagine how I can survive without you. Jiang Zhulu said such touching words of love, but his gaze toward Jiang Shangxin was filled with hatred and coldness. He knew very well that the wife he had married was not a kind person. In the past, he wasn't afraid. On the contrary, he felt that such a wife would have the desire to conquer. However, as the situation developed, he already felt that it was difficult for him to control her. The previous time, when he sent her off at the airport, he had bitten one of her fingers. After that, she eloped with Fang Yan, which proved that she was clear about the situation she would face when she went to Paris. Now, she was back to take revenge. If that's what you think, then you're underestimating me. Jiang Shangxin chuckled and said, We are husband and wife. All of your assets belong to us. Although you don't have enough shares in the loan-to group now, you'll have more or less some. If you go to jail and go to the police station, won't all these shares fall in my hands? Divorce? How is that possible? Jiang Zhulu, when you are in danger, I will not leave you no matter what. Jiang Shangxin stared at Jiang Zhulu fiercely, and her voice was filled with endless hatred. She said, I will always be by your side. I will take away everything from you. I will make you have nothing. Why do you want a divorce? Even if you take away half of the assets after the divorce, you will still have the other half. I don't want to wait until you are released from prison to have a lot of money for you to squander. Jiang Zhulu, I hope that you die in prison. Even if you are released, I want you to become a beggar on the streets. You are a good husband, and I have to work hard to be a good wife. Are you satisfied with this? The premise of you saying all this is that I will go to prison. If I don't go to prison, everything will still be in my hands, and you will still not get anything. You can forget about taking away loan to from me. It is also my duty to send you to prison, Jiang Shangxin said calmly. In that case, you already have evidence in your hands that can throw me into prison? Yes, Jiang Shangxin said. I think it is enough. If you have evidence, you can just hand it over to the police station. Is there a need to tell me all this? Jiang Zhulio's face turned green, and he said, Moreover, I will transfer the assets that belong to me to my relatives. I will let you have everything. Your relatives? Transfer to who? Jiang Shangxin's face was full of disdain. She said, If you really treat them as your relatives, then don't harm them. If you give your assets to your mother, do you think they will let her off? Your father's death has already given her a fatal blow. If you give her shares to her, you will be forcing her to a dead end. However, I quite agree with you doing this, because you will realize that not only will you have nothing, but you will also have no relatives in this world. Jiang Shangxin. Jiang Zhulu shouted at Jiang Shangxin. He pressed Shangxin's palm down and said, sit down quietly. I have already said that I am here to humiliate you. The angrier you are, the more I feel satisfied. The more I feel, the better I feel. Jiang Zhulio's eyes were bloodshot with violence. He stared at Jiang Shangxin with a stern expression and said, You should know that I can make you disappear from this world directly. Tell me, if I push you down from this building and say that you jumped down yourself, do you think others will believe me? You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.